Peace be with you all. The Parsifal Unveiled by Samael Aun. Introduction. Let us talk about the Templar Knights. Let us converse a little bit about these loyal custodians of the Holy Grail. May the gods listen to us. May the Muses inspire us. What could we say about the Castle of Monsalvat? Let us all sing the Hymn of the Grail. Hymn of the Grail. O feast of love undying, from day to day. Renewed, draw near, as for the last time, to taste this sacred food. Who revels in good deeds this holy feast still feeds. He dares approach the shrine to share this gift divine. For sins of the world with thousand sorrows, his sacred blood he offered to the world's Redeemer with joyful heart. Oh, how gladly my blood I proffer. He died for sin atoning. Thus he lives, by death he lives in us. In faith and love, behold the dove, the Saviour's shining token. Take ye the wine, his blood divine, and bread of life here broken. You men and gods, lo, and behold the Grail Knights and their squires. All of them are dressed with white tunics and white cloaks, similar to the Templar Knights. But, instead of the red tau, the symbol of a white dove in soaring flight is displayed with all right on their weapons and embroidered on their cloaks. This is an extraordinary symbol of the third logos, a living sign of the Holy Spirit of Vulcan, that marvelous sexual force with which we can perform many prodigies and marvels. Well, it would be helpful to penetrate within the deep meaning of Wagner's drama. In this drama, Amfortas is a specific type of remorse, Titurel is the voice of the past, Klingsor is the black magician, Parsifal is redemption, Kundry is seduction, and Gurnmans is tradition. In the beginning, the marvelous trombones sound their solemn reveille, and Gurnmans sinks to his knees with his two squires, joining them in silent morning prayer. Two strong knights come from the Grail's castle with the evident purpose of exploring the path which Amfortas, the king of the sacred chalice, is going to follow. The old successor of King Titurel comes earlier than he ever has, to bathe himself within the sacred waters of the lake. This is done with the desire of calming the strong pains which are afflicting him since the moment of his own disgrace, when he received a frightful thrust of a lance, a spear which Klingsor, the perverse black magician, wounded him with. Sorrowful story is the one of Klingsor. Horrifying. He was a sincerely mistaken one, as many are in this day and age. He was living as a penitent in a frightful desert. He wanted to be a saint, thus, he became an enemy to all that could have sexual savor. He dreadfully fought against the animal passions, he wore bloody sackcloths upon his flagellated body, and he cried a lot. Nevertheless, everything was useless, since his lust, lasciviousness, and his secret impudence, in spite of all his efforts and sacrifices, were swallowing him alive. Therefore, oh, dear God, being impotent in eliminating his sexual passions, this unhappy man resolved to mutilate, to castrate himself with his own hands. Then after, he beseechingly extended his hands towards the Grail, but he was rejected with indignation by the guardian. This disgraced one believed that by hating the Holy Spirit, by rejecting the third logos, by destroying the sexual organs, he could be admitted into the Castle of Monsalvat. The unhappy one thought that he could be admitted into the Order of the Holy Grail without the Methuna, without previously achieving the second birth, and while being dressed with lunar rags. This wretched, unfortunate, and ill-starred knight supposed that one could enter to work with the second logos, the Christ, without previously having worked with the third logos, the Holy Spirit, the sexual fire. To that end, the tenebrous, despairing Klingsor unjustly resolved to avenge himself against the noble knights of the Holy Grail. Therefore, he transformed his penitent desert into a bewitched and fatal garden of voluptuous delights, and he filled it with exquisite and diabolical women, dangerously beautiful. Thus there, in that delectable mansion, accompanied with his beauties, he lurked in secrecy for the Grail Knights in order to drag them into concupiscence, which inevitably conduces people towards the infernal worlds. Whosoever allowed himself to be seduced by these provocative she-devils became his victim. Hence, this is how he succeeded in carrying many knights into perdition. Amfortas, king of the Grail, fought this fatal, evil, venturesome Klingsor. The king wanted to put an end to this fatal enchanted plague, but he too fell, surrendering to passion within the impudent arms of the lustful Kundry. With such a formidable moment for Klingsor, he would have been foolish if he would have lost such an opportunity. Therefore, he audaciously snatched the sacred spear from the hands of Amfortas, then while smiling he triumphantly withdrew. Thus, this is the way in which Amfortas the king of the Grail lost the blessed spear with which Longinus pierced the side of the Lord upon Golgotha. Amfortas, who is also pierced in his side with the frightful wound of remorse, suffers the unspeakable. Kundry, a delectable woman of extraordinary beauty, also suffers with remorse, but she humbly serves the brethren of the Holy Grail. Within the depth, you, Kundry, fatal woman, are nothing but an instrument of perfidy, under the service of that magician from darkness. You want to march throughout the path of light, yet, hypnotized you fail. Amfortas, while submerged within intimate profound meditation, listens in ecstasy to the mysterious words of mystic meaning which come from the Grail, made wise through pity, the blameless fool, the innocent and chaste one, wait for him, the one I choose. Suddenly, something extraordinary happens, something unusual. A great commotion stirs among the people of the Grail. Precisely at the shore of the lake, they have intercepted an ignorant boy, who, errant on those shores, has just wounded to death a swan, a sacred bird of immaculate whiteness. But why so much scandal? To Parsifal, this was an event that had just occurred in the past, which fortunately was washed clean within the precious waters of Lethe. Who has not wounded the sacred swan to death? Who has not wounded the third Logos? Who is the one who has not assassinated the miraculous Hamsa, the Holy Spirit? Who, because of fornication, has not assassinated the phoenix bird of paradise? Who has not sinned against the immortal ibis? Who has not made the holy dove, living symbol of the sexual force, to bleed? It is clear that Parsifal, after suffering greatly, has reached total innocence. He is the son of Herzalide, a poor woman from the forest. Really, he ignores mundane things, because he is protected with his innocence. Klingsor's flower maidens are useless as these joyless ones cannot seduce such an innocent one. Therefore, they flee defeated. Useless become the seductive efforts of Herodias, Gundrigia, Kundry, as all of her arts fail. Thus, when looking at herself defeated, she cries, asking for help to Klingsor, who in desperation and rage, hurls the sacred spear against Parsifal. Nevertheless, Parsifal is protected by his innocence. Therefore, the spear, instead of piercing his body, remains hanging over Parsifal's head for an instant. Then, the boy grasps the spear with his right hand, and swings this sharp weapon in the blessed sign of the cross. Finally, the castle of Klingsor collapses and sinks within the abyss, converted into cosmic dust. The best comes afterwards, as Parsifal, in company with his guru Gurnmans, enters into the temple of Montserrat, Spain, Catalonia. The doors of the temple are opened and in solemn procession, all the knights of the Holy Grail penetrate inside the holy place. They are orderly and with infinite veneration place themselves before two long, cloth-covered tables, which are parallel to each other, and which leave an empty space between them. Delectable are those moments in which the mystical supper is celebrated, the cosmic banquet of the Paschal Lamb. Extraordinary are those instants in which the bread and the wine of the transubstantiation are eaten and drank. The blessed chalice in which Joseph of Arimathea collected the blood that poured from the wounds of the Lord upon the Golgotha of all bitterness, gloriously shines during the ritual. Ineffable moments of pleroma are those in which Parsifal miraculously heals the wound of Amfortas, by applying on his side the same blessed spear which wounded him before. This spear is a formidable symbol. It is 100% phallic, it is sexual in its integral form. Amfortas fell because of sex, he dreadfully suffered with the pain of remorse, but, thanks to the sexual mysteries, he totally regenerated and healed himself. The great Kabir Jesus said, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me." Matthew 16 verse 24. The Knights of the Holy Grail did deny themselves. They dissolved the pluralized I by incinerating the satanic seeds, by bathing themselves within the waters of Lethe and Uno. The Knights of the Holy Grail worked in the flaming forge of Vulcan. They never ignored that the cross is the result of the insertion of the vertical beam inside the formal ties. The Knights of the Holy Grail have sacrificed themselves for the sake of humanity. They have worked with infinite love in the great work of the Father. Samael Aun. Chapter 1, Parsifal. Much has been written in life, yet it is necessary to delve profoundly. Let us now, with great prudence, to unveil Parsifal, the culminating work of Wagner. May the gods assist us. The Muses know very well that among the Wagnerian dramas, this diamantine work of this great master is something special and exceptional. In this opera, the word of this master delectably flows as a golden river under the thick jungle of the sun. What Goethe stated about his second Faust also can be stated about Parsifal, namely, I have accumulated in it many mysteries and enigmatic problems, which the future generations will occupy themselves in deciphering. Certainly, and in the name of the truth, I must confess that I am not the first, neither the last one who occupies himself with Parsifal. Nevertheless, it is ostensible that I am the first one who undresses the incarnated truth within the august mysteries of Parsifal. Mr. Mario Rosso de Luna, the illustrious theosophical writer, has stated, Wagner's thought seems intentionally veiled in his Parsifal. Of course, this is in order to select the meaning of certain determined philosophical allusions. When he achieves it, we have to make a great effort in works of divination and deep mental concentration. This is because in this, his work, like in a nightmare, we find confused the most diverse elements, namely, high philosophical matters, biblical and oriental remembrances, mysticism, orthodoxy, vestiges of Catholic cult, pagan rituals, necromancy, somnambulism and hypnotism, practices from medieval chivalry, ecstasy, asceticism, piety, redemption, affinities of a material nature with the human soul, love in its more torpid signification, love in its more pure signification. It is evident by all means and with complete meridian clarity that Wagner was a great initiate, an insightful esotericist, an authentic illuminated one. Science, philosophy, art and religion exist within Wagner's Parsifal. A new Dr. Faust was endowed in this great musician. It seems that he had scrutinized very ancient religious scriptures. What is the most astonishing to me is something tremendous. I am emphatically referring to innate magic. Where did he get it? Who taught it to him? In which school did he learn it? Next, the development of this drama comes with a deep traditional magism, major mysteries that are not understandable for the crowds. To penetrate within this archaic occultism, to delve within the Christic mysteries, to examine the esoteric Buddhism contained within this Wagnerian gospel is precisely what we attempt in this book. Obviously, many pseudo-esotericists will become scandalized with our revelations. It is unquestionable that many sincerely mistaken ones filled with good intentions, while rending their vestures with indignation, will utter horrible things against us, the Gnostics. Indeed, this is because Parsifal always provokes tremendous discussions. It is obvious that the children of darkness abhor the light. Let us remember that Parsifal was shown in the best theaters of Europe on January 1st, 1914. This invites us to meditate. The year 1914 will always be a memorable date among the remarkable dates of this humanity, because of the explosion of the First World War and the simultaneous debut of Parsifal in all the civilized world. It is unquestionable that if Wagner would not have prohibited the presentation of his magnus opus outside of Bayreuth, then, the world would have known it before 1914. Fortunately, and for the sake of the great work of the Father, the will of this immortal musician could not be fulfilled, because the international treatises related to copyrights are above it. Ostensibly, in Germany, the legal protection of this type of works concludes 30 years after the death of its author. Since the already mentioned 30 years were accomplished on January 1st, 1914, the copyright of Parsifal was nullified. Since then, the world could know this majestic work. 1914 had a mysterious connubiality. Parsifal and the First World War. It is indubitable that the Wagnerian gospel resounds in the fields of battle. It is catastrophic, terrific, it gloriously shines amidst the tempest of all exclusiveness. Chapter 2. The Knights of the Holy Grail. Let us now enter onto the stage. We may and must locate the place of action in the ineffable septentrional bluish mountains, in Gothic Spain. It is unquestionable that Wagner sees precisely here and not in any other place the domains and the Castle of Monsalvat, which is occupied by the sublime Knight Templars, terrific custodians of the Holy Grail. The law of contrasts is found written with characters of fire in the great book of nature. It is obvious that the limit of light is darkness. Thus, the shadow of any sanctuary of glory is always a tenebrous den. Hence, in no way is it strange that also around there, upon the meridian slope of the same mountains which looks towards the Arabian Spain, the enchanted castle of the necromancer Klingsor is found. Don Mario Rosso de Luna, the illustrious theosophical writer, stated, "The costumes of the Grail Knights and their squires are white tunics and white mantles, similar to the Templar Knights." Instead of the red tau, however, the symbol of a white dove in soaring, rising flight is displayed on their escutcheons and embroidered on their mantles. The place of that scene, instead of gloomy, indeed, is greatly severe and mysterious. The indispensably austere, rock-strewn ground, in accordance with the initiatic traditions, shines in the center, in a very clear space. Towards the left rises the painful path that leads to the Castle of the Holy Grail. This can be seen by any initiate. In the background, the field delectably slopes steeply down to the sacred lake of the mountain. This sacred pool, the initiatic lake, one among the representation of mysteries, eternal scenario of any temple, as still is shown in the present Hindustani sanctuaries, cannot be missed in the dominions of the Holy Grail. After the sun and its fire, that is its fecundating awakening vibrations of life in all of the areas of the planet, the water, the terrestrial feminine element, the great mother or nourishing cow, is the very base of life, who is symbolized in all theogonies with thousands of lunar names, Io, Maya, Isis, Diana, Lucina, Adicina, Calquahut, and many others more. It is obvious and known by everybody that in this, our world, the crystalline fluidic element always presents itself under two opposite aspects, namely, the static and dynamic. It is not irrelevant to remember the always peaceful, profound, and delectable lake and the boisterous river. Therefore, the peaceful lacustrine state invites us to reflection. Indeed, the water is never so active as when it is shown to us in a tranquil fountain. Delving, then, into this theme of profound meditation, we warn in this moment that the legitimate concept of lake can and must be philosophically applied in a deep esoteric manner. It is important to know with complete clarity that from such spermatic, genesis, or lacustrine static waters comes the splendid substantial hieroglyphic of the eternal zero. It is urgent to comprehend that from the dynamic or fecundating waters of the boisterous river, emerges as if by enchantment, the double line of Aquarius, that is the initial hieroglyphic of the letter M, with which everywhere the eternal feminine element is designed, mother, mater, mama, Mary, Maya, mare. The straight line of the singing rivulet, that audaciously is passing through the peaceful lake, comes to form the primeval hieroglyphic of Io, in other words, the Holy Ten, a tremendous foundation of our decimal system. This reminds us of the terribly divine signs of Shiva, the Holy Spirit, the black lingam inserted into the yoni. Filled with profound significance is the concrete fact that the lake and the sea in the Christian gospel play a formidable and mysterious role related with the most extraordinary moments of the preaching of the great Kabir Jesus. The gospel clearly states, it tells us that when Jesus began his mission, he went to Capernaum, which was a city upon the sea coast of Galilee, of which Isaiah the prophet wisely spoke of, saying, "The people which sat in darkness saw great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death light is sprung up." Matthew 4 verse 16. Therefore, walking by the shore of the Sea of Galilee, the great Kabir Jesus chose as his first disciples the fishermen, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, so that he can make of them fishers of men. When John the Baptist was beheaded, the great Kabir Jesus departed into a desert place by ship privately, St. Mark 6:32, in other words, into the Jinn lands. Here is where he performs with the multitude the extraordinary and astonishing miracle of the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, from which about 5,000 men, not to mention women and children were eating. Moreover, they took up 12 baskets full of fragments. Street Matthew 14:15-21. Therefore, it would be something more than impossible that the sacred lake of the great archaic mysteries would be missing in the domains of the Castle of Monsalvat. The esoteric water in itself is the ens seminis of the ancient medieval alchemists, within which the ens virtutis of the fire is found. Chapter 3. The Chalice and the Lance. Amidst the joyful singing of the birds, the daybreak has dawned, a delight of rosy blushful fingers. The ancient sage Gurnmans, accompanied by 2 youthful squires, are lying profoundly asleep under the enchanted shadow of a leafy taciturn tree. From the very ancient and ancestral side of the Grail's castle, a solemn reveille on trombones powerfully sounds, that with its formidable notes, victoriously greets the dawn. Listening to the glorious and triumphant hymn, the elder Gurnmans and his 2 squires, filled with infinite veneration, humbly kneel themselves and pray with profound reverence. When arriving to the sublime part of this present chapter, it is important to remember that beautiful poem of Don Ramon del Valle Inclán. Astral Roses. Eternal Empires. Golden Sacrariums. Clues from the Great Wholeness. I pray in its laudes. Quiet wills. Solemn virtues. Entrails of the world. Ardent ovariums. Flaming rites of heavenly poses. Sealed fates of the human chorus. Suns guarded by the norms of a demiurgic thesaurus. Arcane, stellar roses. Heavenly arcane. Gnostic arcano. Where enigmas were bound by Trismegistus. Opened and read unto thee by the will of Giuliano. In his empire was discord, thus he became Antichristus. From a pagan heaven, this Gnostic exegete. A solar metamorphosis he beheld in the Christus. From the Grail's castle, 2 knights arrive with majestic step. In their vanguard they are, cautiously exploring the rocky path which Amfortas, the king of such a precious jewel, must follow. It is ostensible that the great priest of such a sacred, resplendent gem, suffers the indescribable, ever since that fatal day in which for his own disgrace, Klingsor, the black magician, hurt him with a sinister thrust of a lance. Thus, the august successor of Ticherel comes more early as customary, in order to take his bath in the sacred pool of the lake. The venerable lord needs with supreme urgency to alleviate the tremendous pains that torture him ever since the moment in which, for his disgrace, the mortal thrust of the lance was inflicted upon him. Those who are divine and human know very well about Klingsor and his ominous, tenebrous arts. This evil personage of the darkness not only snatched the sacred lance from the hands of Amfortas, king of the Grail, but moreover, he wounded Amfortas' side with it. Ah! If people would understand all of this, if they would comprehend the profound significance of the lance. It is ostensible that within all of this exists pure sexuality, transcendental phallicism, eroticism. It is unquestionable that the Grail's Gnostic esoteric lance and the other one, which is the lance of the magic pacts displayed by Wotan, are in their depth the same one, meaning, the emblem of the sexual masculine force, the phallus. A great sage stated, to a certain point, the trunks of the tablets of the law, upon which Moses wrote by command of Jehovah the precepts of the Decalogue, are nothing else than a double runic lance, whose phallic significance we cannot hold back. This can be seen in detail in the 2nd volume of Isis Unveiled. It is written with characters of fire in the great book of cosmic wisdom about the double use of the sacred lance. It is indubitable that this lance wounded the side of the Lord and that from his wound poured forth blood and water. It is ostensible that the same lance healed the wound in the side of Amfortas. Explanations? Patience, beloved reader, we are now only setting up principles. In our next chapters we are going to delve deeply into them. Enigmas? Yes, and many, as admirable as the ones of the Holy Grail, the feminine yoni, the chalice, the woman's sexual organ. So many are the traditions about the Holy Grail. Thus, somewhere among the old medieval books, a lyrical strophe exists, which states, Father, Father of my life, for the one of the Holy Grail, grant thou unto me thy license, so that the count may I go to quest for. It has been indicated to us that this great chalice was in the power of Abraham. We learned that Melchizedek, the genie of the earth, or Chongam, as he is also named, transported it from the country of Semiramis to the fecund land of Canaan. This occurred in the epoch when our planetary regent initiated some enterprises in the blessed place, where much later Jerusalem, the beloved city of the prophets, was found. Ancient traditions that are lost in the night of times affirm that Melchizedek utilized it liturgically for celebrating the sacrifice of bread and wine of the transubstantiation. He offered this in the presence of Abraham, and then delivered the chalice to this patriarch. Some very ancient legends emphatically asseverate that this divine chalice was also in the Ark of Noah. It is not irrelevant to asseverate that this venerated relic was carried into Egypt and that Moses possessed it. This cup was made from a singular matter. It was compact like the matter of a bell, yet did not look as if it had been worked like the metals. Rather, its matter looked as if it was produced from a species of vegetation. The Queen of Sheba submitted many ordeals to Solomon, before surrendering to him such a sublime relic. The great Kabir Jesus Christ had it in his power when he celebrated the Last Supper. Thus, he drank the wine of the Holy Eucharist in such a chalice. The Roman senator Joseph of Arimathea, at the foot of the cross on the Mount of the Skulls, collected within that chalice the purpurine drops of blood that were flowing from the wounds of the Adorable One. Traditions state that this mentioned Roman senator, intelligent and wise as no one, knew how to keep in secrecy such a precious treasure. The price for his sacred zeal became very severe, because when that nobleman refused to deliver to the Roman police that sacrosanct cup and the lance of Longinus, he was then incarcerated. After many years, the freed Joseph of Arimathea took the holy relics, chalice and lance, and went to Rome in search of the Christians. Yet, when he saw the persecutions that they were suffering there, he continued traveling along the regions of the Mediterranean. It is stated in the ancient scriptures that one night, in his dreams, he was approached by an angel who told him that chalice has a great power, because it contains the blood of the Redeemer of the world. Keep it there. This elder then saw the Temple of Montserrat, in Catalua, Spain. Joseph of Arimathea concluded his outstanding mission by keeping these archaic relics within that temple. What happened after is known by the initiates. Presently, the Castle of Monsalvat, within which is found the temple and part of the mountain of Montserrat, entered into Jinn state. It became hidden from the sight of the profane. Uselessly the Crusade Knights were in the quest of the Holy Grail in the Holy Land. The silver cup that presently is delivered to the Olympic champions is preserved as a memory of such quests. Chapter 4. Klingsor the Black Magician. Legends state that yonder, in the luxuriant corner of the warm valley, very close to the sacred land of the Moslems, Klingsor, the evil magician, in a terrible solitude, made his dwelling. Certainly, I knew not, said the old Titurel, what sin he there committed. He sought atonement for it. Yes, holy he would be. He was a mistakenly sincere one, filled with good intentions, unable to kill the sinful, raging lust within him. An assassin's dagger with his hand he held. Thus, he frightfully castrated, emasculated, mutilated himself. The merciful hero Titurel, who knew Klingsor and his tenebrous arts very well, stated that then, the wretched evil penitent one outstretched his bloody supplicant hands to obtain the grail for which he yearned. Yet, it is obvious that he with scorn was spurned by its guardian. To feel himself scorned by the Knights of the Holy Grail? And after having mutilated himself with the sane purpose of eliminating animal passions? What a horror! Oh, God of mine! Consequently, in the rage of his terrible, painful, and shameful deed, impossible to describe with words, the desperate eunuch of darkness searched for a retaliation weapon. It is unquestionable that he found it. Titurel, the voice of the past, states that then, this tenebrous one transformed his frustrated, penitent wilderness into a bewitched garden of voluptuous sexual joys, where blossoming, exquisite, devilish, lovely women lived. There in secrecy, in that mansion of delights, states the elder Titurel, the evil magician waited to lure the Grail's knights in order to subtly drag them into shameful, lustful joy and hell's defilement. The one who allows himself to be seduced is then his victim, says the old monarch. Thus, he achieved making many of our own to fall onto a foul path of disaster. It comes into my memory, when reaching this part of our present chapter, that beautiful poem of Don Ramon del Valle Inclán. Sinful Rose. The cat that hisses. The door that creaks. Glup 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 the dripping hose. At the door shrieks the aborted beast. When I was born, alone in the house. In the night of October. They say that the moon, with a strong wind and jumps of the sea, under its stars, my fortune was rising. So, strong winds watched me when I arrived, and also the sea. That night of October, my death was announced. Night of mine, opened between ground and sun. The magician revest with the stellar apparel, naked as a giant, blew the conch. The beast at the door thrillingly yells. In its eyes remains the autumn night. And yonder, that night of my life, had its two ways, and I followed the one of evil. Thy flesh called upon me, O sinful rose. Alone in the house, sleepless ego. That night of October, the sea arose. The dripping glup glup glup. Amforta's king of the Grail. Beloved woman born for the best, devilish woman fashioned for the abyss, fallen pearl from the throne of the Lord, ineffable fiery rose grown in Eden and stripped by infernal hands, enchanted swan with alabaster neck, singing amidst an immodest bacchanalia. How much good you have done, and how much evil! Oh, God of mine! Yet, and this is accurately better, let us now talk a little about the King Amfortas, successor of the elder Titrel, he who frustrated with much prudence the demon's cunnings. The legend of the century states, and this is known by our forefathers, that the good king had to suffer the indescribable. So, bless my soul, O God! Everything was because of women, or because of that woman, she, the original devilish one, the prototype of perdition and downfall, whom not even Amfortas himself, the Lord of the Grail, could resist. Consequently, the people who go around there state that this good lord also fell upon the arms of a tempestuous blonde woman whom they named Herodias, Kundry, Gundrigia, and who knows what else. The sovereign planned without delay to put an end to the magical enchantments of Klingsor, the evil magician, yet, what happened you now understand. The malignant one, who, indeed, was never a meek sheep, knew how to take good advantage of such a marvelous opportunity. Thus, Klingsor, by approaching very quietly upon the lustful couple who were wallowing in their bed of pleasures, the sacred lance he snatched away. Grasping the spear, he frightfully wounded the side of Amfortas. Afterwards, mocking, he withdrew. To fetch our missing spear, the elder Gernmans continues saying, that is for another. That task we are denied. O wounding, wonderful, all-holiest spear! I saw you with my own eyes wielded by unholiest hand. The elder Gernmans escorted the king in his return, but he was wounded in his side, the wound was burning. This is the wound of remorse that never will heal again. Let us recite the beautiful poem of Don Ramon del Valle Inclán. Rose of the East. When walking, she does it with feline grace. Her whole self is filled with profound echoes. Tales of Aladdin, her dark mouth verbalizes. Through Moret's cake camouflages. Her eyes black, warm, cunning. Her smile gloomy because of ancient science. And her skirt of flowers, a breeze. Of Hindu and sacred constitution. Her hand did cut, in an easterly garden. From the tree forbidden, the apple. While the serpent entwined in her bosom. She decorates the lust with a sense. That is sacred. Amidst the transparent darkness. Of her eyes, the light is a whistle. Chapter 6. The Savage Amazon. Upon the solitary path, the defeated ones, as vague, weakened, vacillating, pensive and ragged phantoms, set themselves on their way to the lake. Hence, when watching the distant tower of the temple, under a certain opalescent light that is dawning in the sky, they go with their halting step, as if they were afraid to arrive. The surrendered Kundry, almost staggering by her fatigue as well as by her terrible and frightful remorse, lunges herself upon the perfumed ground. In those moments, the unfortunate cortege that escorts the king from the Grail's castle to the holy bath advances. The suffering monarch does not keep any resentments in his painful heart. He totally comprehends his own errors, he recognizes his culpability. Thus, humbly he gives thanks to his maid, the woman, the eternal feminine, the monumental Eve from the Hebrew mythology, an eternal toy for the good and evil on the earth, in accordance with the manner of treatment given to her by men. The Wagnerian Magdalene, vilely converted into a toy by the malignant one, longs also to support the divine ideals of the Grail, yet, she always falls defeated. Woman, exclaims Amfortas, art thou not perhaps a demon vomited by hell so that thou canst open this wound in me? Art thou perhaps an angel who did descend from Urania so that thou canst keep vigil upon my unfortunate existence? The savage Amazon, the symbolic woman of the Wagnerian drama. A magnificent prototype of what in the world is the most abject and equally the most sublime, is certainly formidable. She is in wild garb, her skirts tucked up by a snakeskin girdle with long hanging cords. Her black hair loose and disheveled, miraculously waves in separated curls of an obscure reddish-brown hue. Upon her delectable feminine face shines her enchanted dark-colored eyes, which sometimes piercingly flash in a wild manner. Strangely, they more often frightfully fix and stare with a rigor of death. Kundry brings, as the Jewish Magdalene, a small crystal phial from the exotic Arabia. Certainly, the King of the Grail needs a precious balm in order to heal his painful heart. Blessed be the woman. Blessed be the beings who adore each other. Hermes Trismegistus stated, I give thee love, within which the whole summum of wisdom is contained. To love, how beautiful it is to love. Only the great souls can and know how to love. Love begins with a flash of delectable sympathy. It is substantiated with infinite tenderness, and it is synthesized in supreme adoration. A perfect marriage is the union of two beings, one who loves more and the other who loves better. Love is the best accessible religion. Chapter 7. The Innocent Chaste One. After having solemnly narrated everything that happened in the past in those mysterious regions of the Castle of Monsalvat, after the horrendous loss of the Holy Lance, Gernmans, the voice of the past, the venerable elder, continues expressing himself in the following words. Before the ravished sanctuary, orphaned from the sublime relic, in fervent prayer lay Amfortas, a sign of pardon he entreated. The Grail was lighted by a very intense, dazzling and divine mystic radiance. A heavenly, holy vision then appeared to him and spoke. These words of mystic meaning shone before him, made wise through pity, the innocent chaste one, wait for him, the one I choose. All of a sudden, O gods, the legends of the century state that from the lake are heard great scandalous shouts and cries from the knights and squires of the Holy Grail. From the side of the sacred lake, in the depth of the solitary forest, an ignorant boy who wandering around those shores, pointedly wounded with his bow a very beautiful swan, a perfect symbol of the Holy Spirit. But why so much agitation, tumult and disorder? Who has never wounded to death the Kalahamsa swan? Who has never violated the 6th commandment of the law of God that states, Thou shalt not fornicate? Whosoever is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone. O blessed, miraculous Hamsa, sexual force of the third Logos, immortal ibis, white dove of the Grail. The conquering of the ultramare vitae or superliminal world, and the ultra-terrestrial is only possible with the initiatic stone, sex, within which the religion synthesis, which was the primeval religion of humanity, the mystic wisdom of the jinns or of Jano, is contained. To eliminate sex? Oh no. 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 To overcome it? This is ostensible. To love is the best. Let us now recite that beautiful poem of Amado Nervo that is entitled, The Day When Thou Wilt Love Me. The day when thou wilt love me will have more light than June. The night when thou wilt love me will have a full moon, with notes of Beethoven vibrating in every ray. Its ineffable poses will gather there more roses than in the whole month of May. 1,000 crystalline springs will go about the hills, jumping around with singing. Arpeggios never ever heard in the hidden groves. Will resound the day when thou wilt love me. All the vernal seasons which were and shall be in the world will be an ecstasy on thine eyes when thou lovest me. Displaying candid dewdrops as blonde little sisters. Holding hands will go the marguerites. Through mounts and prairies. In front of thy steps, the day when thou wilt love me. And if thou strippest one, its white petal innocently, will tell thee its hindmost, passionately. For oracle leaves will have all the trefoil flowers. The day when thou wilt love me, at the dawning in the bowers. And in the ewer, nests of unknowable buds, incipient flowers, shall blossom mystic corollas of lotus flowers. Each skyline will be a marvelous wing. The day when thou wilt love me. A mirage, every star. Of the 1001 Arabian Nights, every breeze a singing. Every tree a lyre, every mount an altar. The day when thou wilt love me, amidst the two of us. One single kiss shall settle. The Beatitude of God. Chapter 8. Herzelide's Child. It is ostensible that in the past, Parsifal, the innocent chaste one, had also wounded with his arrow the swan of immaculate whiteness, the miraculous Hamsa. He keeps silent to all the diverse questions that, with much emphasis, are asked of him. It is obvious that he ignores everything. He has eliminated the eye. He does not even remember the name of his terrestrial progenitor. He has reconquered the Idnic innocence. He only knows his mother, her name, which is Herzelide, and that in the most profound forest they made their home. Fatherless did his poor, heartbroken, sweet mother bear him, for his father, Gamuret was his name, was gloriously slain amidst the armiettes and bucklers in the battlefield. This adorable mother, in order to protect her child against the premature sign of the heroes, far from arms and in the middle of the crassest ignorance, she raised him with infinite tenderness in a wilderness. Nonetheless, one given day, this young man of heroic lineage saw human flames within the forest. The glittering array of those knights of sparkling vestures, the Grail Knights, who successfully passed through the edge of those solitary wooded spots, was so intense that the young man, impelled by his heroic instinct, resolved to pursue them through the mountains. Protected with the weapons of Vulcan, such a young boy fought the beast of the abyss, vile representations of his ancient errors. Thus, he reduced them into cosmic dust. This is how that fearless boy advanced until the domain of the Grail. This is how we must advance. Kundry, Herodias, informs him that his adorable mother is dead, cruel news which gives him an infinite bitterness that is impossible to describe with words. Frightful moment is this. Parsifal springs furiously at Kundry, then he faints and falls. She at once hastens to a spring and brings the refreshing water to help him. Afterwards, the tremendous hour comes. Gundrigia says terrible things. Everything that exists has its day and its hour. It is now important to remember that beautiful poem of Don Ramon del Valle Inclán, entitled The Rose of the Clock. It is the hour for the enigmas. When in the evening of a summer, a goshawk sent one from the clouds upon the benign doves. It is the hour for the enigmas. It is the hour of the dove. Pursuing the flights is the sight of a girt, pink evening light, divine and musical comma of love. It is the hour of the dove. It is the hour of the serpent. From himself a white hair the devil yanks off. From the tree the apple breaks off, and the crystal of a dream did rent. It is the hour of the serpent. It is the hour of the hen. The cemetery has lights. Before the crucifixes, the devotees in heights make the sign of the cross, the wind agonizes. It is the hour of the hen. It is the hour of the maiden. Tears, letters, and songs. The air filled with orange blossoms. The blue evening, only one star. It is the hour of the maiden. It is the hour of the screeching owl. By he, the aged one, the scriptures are deciphered. Suddenly, the mirror is shattered. She, the aged one, leaves with the oil bowl. It is the hour of the screeching owl. It is the hour of the coquette. Serenaded by a guitar is the street. She, the aged one, a young lad treats to a ring with a rosette. It is the hour of the coquette. It is the hour of a soul in grief. In the crossroads, a soothsayer, with the excommunicated prayer, unto the dead asks for his necklace in brief. It is the hour of a soul in grief. It is the hour of the vespertine. Lurking, the little owl is in the pine. The bandit in his way receives a fine, and Satan in the brothel is a swine. It is the hour of the vespertine. Chapter 9. Kundry's words. Kundry, the marvelous Eve from the Hebrew mythology, unconscious victim of the evil magician, exclaims with infinite pain whilst in front of the Wagnerian Parsifal. Good I do never, for rest I am yearning. I am yearning, ah, I am wretched, weary. Slumber. Oh, may I not be wakened? Then, at that moment, she starts to experience in the distance the currents from the magician's suggestion. Thus, falling into a frightful trembling, she exclaims, no, not slumber. Terror seizes me. She utters a noiseless cry, all her body falls into a violent trembling as a leaf of a herb shaken by the tempest, until she is impotent against the spell. Then, leaving her arms and head to drop wearily and walking a few wavering steps, she sinks down hypnotized behind the bushes while lamenting, vain to resist. The time has come. Slumber. Slumber. I must. Slumber I must. The woman of antonomasia, the woman symbol, the original she-devil, the prototype of perdition and of downfall, whom not even Amfortas himself, the everything invites to a nap. Thus, you sleep, Eva, Kundry, Gundrigia, Herodias. You sleep amidst your secret laments. You are an unconscious victim of a fatal sortilege. But, O God of mine, what a terrifying idea pursues you in dreams. What is it that you do not want to do, yet you do? Chapter 10. Hymn of the Grail. From such a delectable and pleasant bath, the litter of the king is shown passing by towards the castle of Monsalvat. The venerable elder Gurnmans joins the escort, kindly inviting the young man to the sacred feast. It is necessary for the boy to also receive the benefits of the Grail. I scarcely stir, yet I sense that all things move apace, says Parsifal. The elder, grown white in wisdom, answers with great assertion. You see, my son, here time is one with space. Time in itself is the fourth dimension. This is ostensible. The fourth coordinate is summarized in two totally defined aspects: the temporal and the spatial. It is unquestionable that the chronometrical aspect of the fourth dimension is just the surface. It is indubitable that the spatial aspect of the fourth vertical is the depth. A fourth vertical always exists within the three-dimensional world in which we live. This in itself is time. Time does not exist within eternity. It is clear that eternity becomes the fifth dimension. You know this. In eternity, everything is processed within an eternal now. Have you ever heard about that which is beyond time and eternity? It is clear that the sixth dimension exists. But what will we say about the unknowable zero dimension? Pure spirit? Yes. 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 The elder Gurnmans, with that wisdom whitened by time, understands everything. Thus, wisely, he leads the son of Herselide to the Holy Grail. Gradually, while the old master and his young disciple advance, the scene changes more perceptibly. Down below, the solitary forest disappears, while Gurnmans and Parsifal patiently climb the monstrous granite bulk. Little by little, each time better, the gentle reveille of the trombones and the august sounding of the temple bells are heard. Finally, master and disciple arrive at a precious pillared hail, whose majestic vaulted dome is lost in the height. Parsifal, standing in ecstasy, is speechless while in front of such a divine magnificence that is impossible to describe with words. On both sides, at the far end, two doors full of glory are opened. The Knights of the Grail enter through them. In order, the Cavaliers of the Light place themselves before two long, cloth-covered tables, which are parallel to each other and which leave an empty space between them. Chalices or cups are upon such joyful tables, yet delightful dishes are missing. From another side appears the King Amfortas borne in on a litter by valiant squires and serving brothers, and before the king are some pure children, who are like angels with rosy faces. These creatures bear a shrine covered with a purple cloth, within which the mysteries of sex are hidden. The sublime escort places the King Amfortas on a raised couch to the center upstage, under a canopy, upon a marble table that is in front of the sacred shrine. From the diverse places of the temple, this congregation of light intones joyfully the hymn of the Grail, that says, O feast of love undying, from day to day. Renewed, draw near, as for the last time, to taste this sacred food. Who revels in good deeds this holy feast still feeds, he dares approach the shrine to share this gift divine. For sins of the world with thousand sorrows, his sacred blood he offered to the world's Redeemer with joyful heart. Oh, how gladly my blood I proffer, he died for sin atoning. Thus he lives, by death he lives in us. In faith and love, behold the dove the Saviour's shining token, take ye the wine, his blood divine, and bread of life here broken. Chapter 11. The Holy Relic. When the hindmost notes of those detectable chants expire in the mystery, and when all the august knights of divine aspect have taken their places abreast the sacred tables, an imposing silence is kept. A stupendous vision, completely naked, was advancing with a whiteness of entranced and fatal spikenards. An exotic mystery. The voice of the aged Titrel is heard in the profound background, as if emerging from a dark tomb. He imperatively commands his son to reveal the Holy Grail so that he can contemplate it. For the last time, Amfortas resists him and says, No. Leave it unrevealed. May no one know the burning pain caused by the holy sight that gives you delight. What is the spear wound, all its raging smart, compared to the pain, the infernal agony of being condemned to serve this task? Woeful my birthright, defiled by sinning, I, only sinner, am the guardian who holds the holy relic for sinless others, entreating its holy blessings on the pure souls, on my brothers. Chastisement. Merciless chastisement from, the Almighty God of mercy, who I offended terribly. For him, for the Lord, for his all-holy greeting my stricken heart is yearning. Vehemently only in deepest repentance, only in deepest innermost contrition, my soul can reach him. The time is near, a light beam sinks upon the holiest shrine, the covering falls. The divine blood within that pure holiest cup now glows and shines with a powerfully splendorous tender light. Transfixed by rapturous and joyful pain, the fount of that heavenly blood, I feel it flowing in my heart. The furious surge of my own guilty blood, my vile blood now defiled by shame, recoils before it, to the world of sin and lust how wildly now it is gushing. The wound has opened again, my blood now is streaming forth, here, through the spear wound, a wound like his, inflicted by the spear that wounded the Redeemer, the spear that inflicted the sacred wound, through which with bleeding tears the Holy One wept for the sins of men, in compassion's divine holiest yearning. And now here from my wound, in my sacred office, the guardian of divine, godliest treasure, of redemption's balm the keeper, my fevered sinful blood flows forth, ever renewed by the tide of my yearnings that, no repentance ever stills. Have mercy. Have mercy. Thou, the all-merciful. Have mercy. Take back my birthright, heal my wound, end my affliction, that wholly I perish pure, whole, and healed for thee. In this anguished, painful, joyful, and weeping bloody flame, within which is born the mystery of an enchantment that destroys and nourishes my life, I do not know who am, yet, I forebode something terribly divine. I do not know who I am, in this fatal snare of my own existence that contemplates with mystical bewilderment in frightful vertiginous, foamy fish, and a font of time that I uselessly hoard to satiate this unquenchable thirst that torments me. I question myself with an unknown voice that rather seems an alien and grave voice from a vain world of darkness and infinite bitterness. Only my wretched haughty reasoning remains, meager sinful shadow. After these words, Amfortas sinks back unconscious and the Holy Grail is revealed. Ancient traditions that are lost within the night of the innumerable centuries state that when this most excellent sublime cavalier grasped the sacred chalice, a perfect symbol of the feminine yoni, a dense dusky glimmer, the sexual mist of the Hebrew tabernacle, delectably spread everywhere, enveloping the marvelous hail of the sanctuary. This reminds us of the Sahajamethuna in the supreme moment. The mysteries of Lingam Yoni are terribly divine. A very pure dazzling ray of light falls from the heights, from heaven, from Urania, upon the chalice, and makes it now to glow ever more intensely, with an infinite and non-extinguishing brilliant crimson. Knowing how to use the phallic cross, Amfortas with a transfigured countenance, raises the grail aloft and waves it gently round to every side, consecrating the bread and the wine of transubstantiation. Delectably, lovingly, and adoringly, the choruses resound. Amfortas sets down the sacred grail within the shrine again, and its glow gradually fades as the dense, dusky sexual glimmer disappears anew. The bread and wine are distributed on the tables. The knights seat themselves at the feast. Parsifal, however, remains standing apart, motionless in ecstasy. Finally, his ecstasy ceases on hearing Amfortas' cry of agony. Hence, the young man suffers a mortal spasm. Gurnmans believes Parsifal is besotted and unconscious to what is happening. Therefore, he comes up to him in an ill humor and shaking him by the arm, brutally pushes him out of the sacred precinct, while the voices of the youth, children and knights who sing the sanctification with faith and divine love are decreasing. Chapter 12, Bayreuth. It is for the good of the great cause to know that Wagner prohibited the representation of his Parsifal anywhere out of that marvelous theatre of Bayreuth. We already stated with much assertion that after the legal terms were dissolved, Parsifal was known in all of the theatres of Europe. Regarding the truth, we must be very frank. Indeed, it is lamentable that the widow and son of Wagner, along with other German musicians, wanted to modify the law in relation with the intellectual property, with the evident purpose of limiting the representation of Parsifal exclusively to the old theatre of Bayreuth. It is ostensible that these sincerely mistaken ones did not attain their forementioned purpose. It is unquestionable that pain for some is happiness for others. The failure of these well-intentioned people had formidable international repercussions among the public of Europe, who were not deprived of knowing this great work. The magnum works cannot be limited neither in the space nor in time. It is absurd to try to hide the sun with a finger. It has been milled around that this aforementioned work was sung before 1914 in the Metropolitan Theater of New York. For having done so, this company jumped above all kinds of legal obstacles. It is pathetic, clear, and definite that such a company paid the fine with infinite pleasure, since it is obvious that they received a substantial profit. Nonetheless, bless my soul, O God! Perchance, did not the same thing happen in Monte Carlo? The whole world knows that they wanted to present this sacred poem. Unfortunately, because of the threats of Wagner's widow and son, the work only could be sung in a function and a banquet. We are now going to transcribe with great care a journalistic article that is indeed very interesting. This matter about Parsifal emerged in the mind of Wagner in 1845, yet he did not start to work on the poem until the spring of 1857. He interrupted it many times, until finally finishing it on February 23, 1877. Long before concluding with the book, he composed some musical pieces, the first ones in 1857. However, indeed, he did not start to work seriously on the score until the autumn of 1877, that is to say, the same year in which he wrote the last phrase of the poem. The work was definitively finished January 13, 1882, a little while after the preparations for its feature presentation began. So, once this was already very well rehearsed, Parsifal was featured July 26, 1882, in the Theatre of Bayreuth. Parsifal became an enormous success, provoking tears from that genius who was so accustomed to challenge. The excited Wagner hugged with enthusiasm Materna and Scheria, who interpreted the roles of Kundry and Gernmans, respectively. He also hugged the great maestro Hermann Levi, who conducted the orchestra and who we met and applauded 12 or 14 years ago in Madrid, in those famous concertos of Prince Alfonso, within which there were so many eminent German conductors. When speaking about this, it is best to dedicate a memory of admiration and sympathy to the great Maestro Mancinelli, the one who, indeed, brought the duck with golden eggs, that is to say, the one who gave us the way in order to know almost the whole of Wagner and the one who organized great concertos. The auditions of that opera season under the direction of Mancinelli constitute a memorable epoch for the history of the development of the lyrical art in Spain. Wagner survived approximately only 6 months after his great triumph, Parsifal. A little while after the feature presentation of Parsifal, the master went to Venice for winter, as he had the custom of doing since 1879. Suddenly, in an unexpected way, he passed away February 13, 1883, at the side of his wife, Cosima Liszt, daughter of the famous musician with the same family name, and of his friend Zhukovsky. 2 days after, the mortal remains of the glorious creator of the lyrical drama were transported to Bayreuth, where now they are resting in the garden of the small house of Wanfried, under a marble stone without ornament or any inscription. Chapter 13. The Mercury of the Secret Philosophy. In these moments of mysterious joy, it is not irrelevant to remember that subliminal poem of Horace, the author of the Epodes and the Satires, which saw the light between the years 35 and 30 BC. Mercury. Mercury, facund nepus Atlantis. Caferos cultus hominum recentum. Voci formasti catus et decore. Mor palestri. Te canum, magni lovis et deorum. Nuntium curvec lyri parentum. Calidum quidquid placuit iocaso. Condura furto. Te, boves omnisi reditices. Perdolum amodas, purum minasi. Voci dum terit, viduus feritra. Risit Apollo. Quin et atridas duce te superbos. Ichio dives, praemus relicto. Thessalos ignis iti ini quattroi. Castra fephilit. Tu pius laetus onimus reponis. Sedibus vergac, levum coerces. Aurea turbum, superis deorum. Gratus iti imis. Mercury, grandson of Atlas, thine eloquence. For the primeval man was the master. His rudeness thou polished with utterance. And the finishing use of the palestra. Nuncio of the gods and highest Jove. Was thy glory to invent the curving lyre? And thy grace is to ride on a graceful carriage, as much as the impulse of thy audacious genius inspires. When child, the flock of Apollo thou robbed, and with furious voices he upbraided thee. Yet he had to laugh when seeing, astonished, that even his quiver thou had stolen. With royal gifts Priamus left Ilion, when him the Greek host was circling. Pitiless Atridas, Thessalian bonfires. Everything was deceived by thy guidance. The pitiful souls, airy shadows, escort thy golden wand to eternal joy. For all the gods, an affable deity, a delight for Olympus and the Avernus. Thus, having chanted such a sublime poem from the Horatian lyrics, it is now important to know what Mercury is. It is unquestionable, and any Gnostic can comprehend that Mercury, as an astrological planet, is obviously even more mysterious than Venus itself and is identical to the Mazdaist Mitra, Buddha, the genie or god who is formidably situated between the sun and the moon. Mercury is the sublime eternal companion of the solar disk of divine wisdom. Pausanias, in his 5th book, shows Mercury having a common altar with thundering Jupiter, father of those divine ones in humans. Ancient legends state that Mercury was displaying radiant wings of fire in order to express that he was assisting the Christ Sun in its eternal course. This is why, by his own right, he was called in other times Nuncio and Wolf of the Sun, Solaris Luminis Particeps. As a sequence or corollary, we must affirm that he was the chief and the evocator of the souls, the archmagi and hierophant. Virgil, the illustrious poet of Mantua, intelligently describes Mercury holding his hammer or caduceus with two serpents, in order to invoke the unhappy souls to a new life, those souls who were precipitated into the orco or limbus, tum virgum capit, hac animus al evocat orco, with the purpose of having them enter into the celestial militia, as he shows it in Venedad. Mercury, the esoteric auric planet, the ineffable one, is the one which the austere and sublime hierophants prohibited to name. Thus, by studying dusty millenary manuscripts, we can verify that Mercury is symbolized in Greek mythology by the famous hare-hunting dogs, or guardian dogs of the celestial cattle that always drink from the very pure crystalline wells of occult wisdom. Therefore, Mercury is also known as Hermes Anubis, as well as the good inspirator, or Agatha demon. Remember that the Emperor Juliano was praying every night to the occult sun through the intersection of Mercury. For as Vossius, by his own right states, all theologists asseverate that Mercury and the sun are one. This is why that planet was considered to be the most eloquent and wise of the gods, a fact which is not strange since Mercury is found so close to the wisdom and to the word, or logos, that is frequently mistaken for both. Chapter 14. The Marvelous Swastika. Without a doubt, the sacred pool, the initiatic lake, representing the divine mysteries in the dominions of the Holy Grail, is the Mercury of the secret philosophy. It is the liquid, flexible, malleable glass contained within our sexual glands. Philippus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, Aurelius Paracelsus, states that within the ens seminis is found the whole ens virtutis of the fire. After the radiant sun and its tongues of ardent fire, which sparkle within the ineffable orchestration of the spheres, the Mercury of the secret philosophy, the ens seminis, the chaotic water of the first instant, the feminine eternal element, the great mother or nourishing cow, is the very living foundation of all cosmic life. To intelligently transmute these waters of life free in movement, this Sophic Mercury of the wise signifies an intensive work in the laboratorium oratorium of the third logos. It is written with fiery characters in the great book of life that the unutterable secret of the great arcanum is miraculously hidden within the Jaina or Jinn cross. This is the marvelous clue of the sexual transmutation. It is not difficult to comprehend that such a magical cross is the same swastika of the great mysteries. While in a delectable ecstasy of a yearning soul, we can and even must place ourselves in mystical contact with Janus, the austere and sublime Jinn hierophant, who taught in a foregone time of our world the science of the jinns. Two schools that mutually combat each other exist in secret Tibet. I want to clearly refer to the Mahayana and Hinayana institutions. Strait is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Matthew 7 verse 14. The Hinayana path is, without a doubt, Buddhic and Christic. It is cited in the sacred books. It is mentioned in the four Gospels. The pure souls in the state of perfect beatitude can experience in a direct way the intimate existing relationship between the swastika and the Hinayana path. H.P.B., the great martyr of the 19th century, was right when telling us that the swastika of Phusaelas is the most sacred and mystical symbol, such an ineffable sign. Actually, glows over the head of the great serpent of Vishnu, the Shesta Ananta of 1,000 heads, whose habitat resides in Padala or the inferior region. While advancing with the cross on our shoulders towards the Mount of the Skulls, we come to evidence that all the nations of ancient times always put the swastika at the head of their sacred symbols. The complete lucidity of the spirit allows us to comprehend that the swastika is Thor's hammer, the magical weapon forged by the pygmies against the giants, or pre-cosmic titanic forces, who were in opposition to the law of universal harmony. The sacred swastika is then the hammer that produces the tempests which the Auses or heavenly lords use. Its rectangular, elbowed arms in the macrocosm of infinite splendors clearly expresses with plenitude the always indefatigable terrestrial rotation and the incessant renovating movement of the cosmic garden. The swastika in the microcosm represents the human being with his right arm aiming towards heaven while his left arm, as a fatal shadow of winter, is aiming downwards, as if it is showing with infinite pain our afflicted world. The swastika is also an alchemical, cosmogonical, and anthropological sign with 7 distinct interpretative clues. As a symbol of transcendental electricity, it is, in brief, the alpha and the omega of the universal sexual force, which descends through the golden steps of the spirit until the material world. Therefore, whosoever achieves the grasping of all of its mystical significance remains free from all of Maya, illusion. The swastika is the electrical windmill of physicists. All of the terrific mysteries of the lingam yoni are enclosed within it. It is obvious that the exotic Hindustani sex yoga with all of its oriental perfumes, the mysterious eroticism of Kamakulpa, the Sahaja Maithuna with its sexual positions ardent as the fire, are sealed with the swastika cross. The vertical beam of the Holy Cross is masculine, virile, powerful. The horizontal beam is delectably feminine. The clue of all powers is found in the crossing of these 2 eternal rods. The swastika is the cross in movement, sex in complete activity, sexual transmutation in action. Blessed be the wise man who by loving a woman joyfully submerges himself within the sacred erotic mysteries of Minna, the dreadful darkness of a true love whose twin brother is death. This will allow him to sublimate and transmute the mercury of the secret philosophy. The enchanted night of love symbolizes the vulgar infra-obscurity of ignorance and evil magic, as well as the super-obscurity of silence, and the august secret of the wise, the yaksha and rajkshas of Mahabharata. It is written with diamond words in the book of all creation, whosoever wants to ascend must first of all descend. The conquest of the ultramare vite, or superliminal and ultra-terrestrial world would be absolutely impossible without the wise transmutation of the Sophic mercury. The Nubal maidens and the wise males from Amen's men, the Egyptian paradise, suffered greatly within the Averno, living at the shores of the Styx lake. You know this. To transmute the water into wine such as the great Kabir Jesus taught in the weddings of Cana is something more bitter than bile. The white dove of the Holy Spirit displayed on the weapons and embroidered on the cloaks of the Knights of the Holy Grail, the sacred swan, the miraculous Hamsa, the phoenix bird of paradise, the immortal ibis, marvelously shines upon the profound waters of life. From within the profound bottom of the Styx lake, within the terrible profundities of the Averno, emerge gods who lose themselves within the abstract absolute space. The light emerges from the darkness and the cosmos sprouts from the chaos. Chapter 15. The Sexual Force. It is comprehensible that such an aforesaid, marvelous legend of the Holy Grail is certainly very well known in France if with the constancy of a clergyman in a cell we study with infinite longings all of those dusty manuscripts of medieval cavalry, we can then evidence many traditions related with the Holy Grail famous, indeed, are very ancient works, such as The Small Sloop of Merlin and the Quest for the Holy Grail. Those hairy bards from Bohemian Germany, who in aforetime made all of Europe joyful, always uttered Graal by using the double A. So be it with them and their ballads in question. The Britons who indeed have good fame with the Celtic legend always named the sacred chalice Graal. It is certainly easy to comprehend that to be radically oblivious of the esoteric Christic principles would badly take us into the confusing labyrinth of too many incoherent etymologies that, indeed, have nothing to do with this Eburnean cup, delight of the archaic mysteries. It is not irrelevant to remember that strophe from Arsaprest of Haita that describes a certain kitchen from his time. Bowls, pans, carafes, and cauldrons. Kettles and barrels, all domestic things. Everything was sent to be washed to the washerwomen. Spatulas, grails, pots and cover pans. We must drink the initiatic nectar of the holy gods within the regenerating cup or feminine sexual yoni. The Holy Grail is the miraculous chalice of the supreme beverage. The initiatic cup of Sukra and of Manti. Inside the enchanting female's holy cup is contained the exquisite wine of transcendental spirituality. The conquering of the ultramare vitae or superliminal world, and the ultra-terrestrial is something more than impossible if we commit the error of underestimating the woman. The delectable verb of Isis emerges from within the profound bosom of all ages, awaiting for the instant to be realized. The ineffable words of the goddess Neith has been carved on the resplendent walls of the Temple of Wisdom with letters of gold. I am the one that was, is, and shall be, and no mortal has ever lifted my veil. The primeval religion of Jano or Jano, in other words, the queritary and superhuman, solar, golden doctrine of the jinns is absolutely sexual. You know this. It is written with flaming coals in the book of life that within the golden age of Lycio and of Liguria, the divine king Jano or Saturn, Iao, Bacchus, Jehovah, reigned over those holy people, all Aryan tribes from diverse epochs and origins. Then, O God of mine, it may be said that in similar epochs with other people from ancient Arcadia, those jinns and mankind were happily living together. We feel in the depth of our heart, within the ineffable mystical idol commonly called the enchantments of Holy Friday, that a terribly divine force exists within the sexual organs, which either can liberate or enslave the human being. The sexual energy contains in itself the living prototype of the solar man, which when crystallizing within ourselves, transforms us radically. Many suffering souls would like to enter into the transcendental Monsalvat, yet, unfortunately, this is something more than impossible due to the veil of Isis or sexual Adamic veil. Among the ineffable blessings of the jinn paradises, there certainly exists a divine humanity that is invisible to mortals, due to their sins and limitations born from their misused sex. It is ostensible that the White Brotherhood possesses grandiose treasures in the style of such an inestimable jewel as the Holy Grail. The verb of the holy gods, resounding in the depths of the profound night of times, each time comes to remind us of the first love and the necessity of learning how to sublimate and to transmute the sexual energy. Indeed, while we do not overcome sex as the Mahatmas, it is impossible to enter into direct contact with the sacred superhumanity, which has always been talked about in every universal legend. Those masters of compassion are the loyal custodians of the Holy Grail, or of the initiatic stone, that is to say, of the supreme religion synthesis, which was the primeval religion of humanity. Let us talk clear and plain. By no means do we exaggerate concepts if we emphasize the basic idea that sex is the center of gravity of all human activities. As a sequence or corollary, we affirm, when a male finds his female sexual partner, society has begun. Mechanization is different. We, the Gnostics, reject the unconscious automatism. Obviously, the mechanization of sex becomes infrahuman. We want conscious action. As a rule, conduct, guide to follow, it is important to know that what is current and habitual is the downwards flowing of the sexual energy, that is, from higher to lower, from inside to outside. To make the creative energy of the third logos to return inward and upward, that is, towards the inside and then raising it up, truly signifies to enter upon the blessed path of regeneration. This is precisely the upright law of the Holy Grail. It is ostensible that the lance, with which the Roman centurion named Longinus cruelly wounded the side of the adorable one on the Mount of the Skulls, also plays a great role in innumerable traditions from the Asiatic world, sometimes with the symbolism already unveiled in the former paragraphs, sometimes as an esoteric instrument of salvation and of liberation. The Venerable Amfortas, great lord, king of the Grail, successor of the elder Titurel, wounded in aforetime by sex, phallus or lance when falling victim to sexual seduction, can only be healed with the same shaft that wounded him. By a logical sequence, we can deduce that this good lord of too much bitterness, Amfortas, had to intensely work in the flaming forge of Vulcan. To transmute is the best, and this was never ignored by the Roman matrons who developed and advanced themselves under the tutelage of the goddess Juno. Amidst the profound lethargy of the night of time sleeps that legendary city of the Sabines, which was founded happily by Medeo Phideo and Himela. Ancient Aryan traditions state that these good people knew very well in depth the sexual mysteries of the lance. Now, based on these unusual assertions, our very beloved Gnostic readers will comprehend the motive why the heroes were rewarded with a small iron shaft or lance. Hastapra was the name of such a shaft. This reminds us of the sacred city of Hastinapure, a living symbol of the heavenly Jerusalem. Chapter 16. The Philosophical Stone. There is an IT about this marvelous stone. What is the deep significance of this tremendous mystery? Oh, chaste clergy chanted the evoking bards from Gethiel or the primeval Gii, Ireland, when singing about their glorious millenarian traditions to the Catholic priests, who went there to evangelize them. Its profound magic and sublime signification, who can decipher and unveil it? No one but he, the chosen one, can decipher the mystery of the stone and of its it. When dealing with these sacred portents that astonish the mystic, it is certainly not incongruent that such an aforesaid stone transforms itself into a crater, hermetic cup, or chalice of infinite splendors. What is then the purpose of all the perplexity, vacillation, and uncertainty in regards to that poem of Chrétien de Troyes, 12th century? If the Holy Grail is a precious stone that was brought to the earth by the angels or ineffable Devis, and entrusted to a secret fraternity for its zealous custody, there is then no obstacle for this celestial gem in obtaining the splendid shape of the cup of Hermes. Here we are then with the cubic stone of Yesod, situated accordingly with the Hebrew Kabbalists in our very sexual organs. This is the blessed stone that the patriarch Jacob, living reincarnation of the angel Israel, anointed with sacred oil in aforetime. This is the initiatic patera from the esoteric colleges. The philosophical stone of the ancient medieval alchemists. A stone of stumbling and a rock of offense was a statement made in aforetime by the Hierophant Peter or Pater. It is not irrelevant in this chapter to transcribe with infinite patience and profound serenity the authentic text of Wolfram of Eschembach, related to this aforesaid stone and to the mysterious brotherhood who have custody of it. Those heroes are animated by a stone. Do you not know of its august and pure essence? It is called lapis electrix, magnus. Any marvel, magic, can be performed through it. As the phoenix which is precipitated into the flames, it can be reborn from its own ashes. Because within the same flames it rejuvenates its plumage. Thus rejuvenated, it glows more beautiful than before. Its power is such that any man, who, no matter how unhappy in his own state he might be, no matter his color, no matter his face, instead of dying as others, he no longer knows what age might be, and whether man or woman, they shall enjoy from this ineffable delight, which is to contemplate the stone, for more than 200 years. Jesus the great Kabir said, "The stone which the builders rejected, the same has become the head of the corner. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." Matthew 21:42. Beyond time and distance, Klingser, the evil magician, disputed this stone and had it as a taboo or a sin. It is written, and with words of fire, in the Wagnerian drama, that with a sharp steel knife he violently discarded the blessed stone. But Master Klingser, finicky and weepier as no one, after performing such a tremendous inanity, outstretched his bloody supplicant hands to gain the Grail. It is obvious that the guardian, with the terrible sharp point of his sword, rejected him with indignation. People from other times state that where the pagan's luxuriant land starts, Klingser, the Lord of Darkness, learned how to hate sex. His bookish erudition amidst his penitent and disciplinary desert was ostensible. This disgraceful Cenobite believed in a possible transcendental mutilation by means of the elimination of the sexual instinct. Impossible enticement, useless reflector, absurd decoy was the one used by this exotic anchorite. He was an illustrious gentleman who came from remote places, notable cavalier, eminent sir, strange and contradictory. He was a paradoxical hermit boasting sanctity, a foolish Puritan with airs of being an illuminated one. He adored Shiva, the third Logos, the Holy Spirit. Nevertheless, he spat all of his defamatory slobber into the ninth sphere, sex. He worked tenaciously with multiple pseudo-esoteric exercises, and he also horrifyingly whipped himself until extenuation. He dressed himself with filthy rags of a mendicant, he poured ashes over his head, and he put sackcloth upon his mortified body. Obnoxious vegetarian, he was the creator of a kitchen type of religion. Those who met him stated that he never drank wine nor cider. He guided many, when rather his major necessity was to be guided, and he never preoccupied himself in the elimination of the interior Pharisee. Nonetheless, everything was in vain. When he discarded the initiatic patera, the marvelous doors of the transcendental Monsalvat were closed before this unworthy one. Chapter 17, Lucifer. Prometheus, the Greek god, is the Mahajura, the Hindustani Lucifer who rebelled against Brahma the Lord, for which Shiva, the third Logos, hurled him with indignation down into the inferior Padala. The Florentine Dante, illustrious disciple of Virgil, the eminent crowned bard from Mantua, finds in the right moment Prometheus Lucifer in the ninth sphere. This is obviously in the center of the earth, in the profound well of the universe, the place where the souls were all covered underneath, transparent, as through glass pellucid the frail stem. The Mahajura, fatally enchained to the severe rock of sex, cruelly passes through unutterable bitterness. The wild flames of lust frightfully torture him. The insatiable, useless vulture of reasoning gnaws at his entrails. Prometheus Lucifer is a mysterious fire detached from the solar Logos and wisely fixed in the center of the earth by the force of gravity and the weight of the atmosphere. It is written with golden words in the Book of Life. The superlative ingredient of the anima mundi is the luciferin phosphorus. As a sequence or corollary, it fits here to asseverate with much emphasis the following: the sterile work of mime in his forge, the rotund failure of the creative powers comes when the fire is extinguished. The ardent crepitation of the elemental fire of the wise under the alchemist's crucible is an axiom of Hermetic philosophy. In re ignis, natura, renovator, integra, the fire renews all nature incessantly. You know this. Let Lucifer, the Mahajura, be excluded from sex yoga and observe then what happens. Let failure be contemplated. In the resplendent dawn of the Mahamanvantara, when the human being and the terrestrial chain were going to appear, an angel, the shadow of the Lord, filled with a desire for progression, was produced from the presence of the Logos like an enchantment. Thus, it is obvious that the divine architect of the universe granted to him the dominion of the infernal worlds. Hence, it is unquestionable that the superior semblance of that vile worm who passes through the heart of the world is lone, swan, chone, John, the verb, the army of the voice, the Logos. Prometheus Lucifer, descending to the bottom of the Averno in order to liberate the victims from their tortures, reminds us of Hercules, the solar god, descending into Hades or the cave of the initiation in order to save the lost souls. Lucifer is the active and centrifugal energy of the universe, fire, life, self-independence, psychological rebellion. The inferno in its revolutionary impetus is the vital expansion of the nebula in order to convert itself into new planetary units. Prometheus Lucifer courageously plunders the divine fire in order to assist us in the path of spiritual insurrection. Lucifer is the guardian of the door, who alone is entrusted with the keys of the sanctuary, where no one enters therein, save the anointed ones who have the terrific secret of Hermes. The resplendent lord of the seven glorious mansions, known with the sacred names of Lucifer, Prometheus, Mahajura, etc., is certainly the splendid minister of the solar Logos. The seven lords of time, the seven Chronides, know very well that Lucifer Sabaoth is the one who bears the sword and the scale of cosmic justice, because to him is undoubtedly committed the norm of the weight, measure, and number. He is Horus, Brahma, the Ahura Mazda, etc., etc., etc. Prometheus Lucifer, placing his verb, word, in the mouth of the wounded Titan, when speaking of the wretched mortals, exclaims with all of the strength of his soul, I rescued men from shattering destruction. That would have carried them to Hades' house. And therefore I am tortured on this rock. A bitterness to suffer, and a pain. To pitiful eyes. I gave to mortal man. A precedence over myself in pity. Chorus observes very pertinently. That was a mighty boon you gave to men. Lucifer Prometheus answers. Yes, besides this, I gave them fire. Chorus. And do creatures of the day now possess the flame bright fire? Prometheus. Yes, and with it they shall master many crafts. However, it is easy to comprehend that with the arts which exalt and dignify man, the granted luciferic fire has turned itself into the worst damnation. The animal element and the consciousness in its possession have changed the periodical instinct into animalism and chronic sensuality. This is what is menacing humanity like a heavy funerary mantle. This is how the responsibility of free will surges, the titanic passions that represent humanity in its more somber aspect. Hence, since we have already talked about the tenebrous aspects of the Luciferic fire in our past Christmas messages, now we only have to say that such a fire is neither good nor evil. All depends on how we use it. Precisely, sin and redemption are established upon this, in unison. Ah! If Amfortas, the king of the Grail, eminent successor of the elder Titurel, would have taken advantage of that royal moment, the terrible moment of sexual passion, if in those moments of supreme voluptuousness he would have grasped the sacred lance with firmness, then the evil magician would not have snatched from him the sacred shaft. However, that noble sir, in spite of knowing the secret of the Elohim, the mystery of the creative fire, he fell defeated upon the arms of Kundry, Herodias. Chapter 18. Angels and Devils. The ultramodern Lucifer Prometheus, frightfully devolving in time, has now converted himself into Epimetheus, the one who sees only after the event because the glorious universal philanthropy of the first has degenerated itself since many centuries ago into interest and self-adoration. Oh, holy gods! When will these chains that tie us to the abyss of mystery be broken? In which epoch of the history of the world will the brilliant and free Titan of the past re-emerge again within the heart of every human? To die within oneself is radical, if indeed what we long for with all the strength of the soul is to harmonize the two natures, divine and human, in each one of us. Invulnerability against the titanic inferior forces, impenetrability in great scale, are only possible by integrally eliminating our psychological defects, those horrible red devils mentioned in the Book of the Occult Abode. Seth, the animal ego, with all of its sinister subjective aggregates, is accustomed to being terribly malignant, indeed. It is written with flaming coals in the tremendous book of mystery that the Luciferin, mighty boon, terrible as no one, at a later time turned into the principal cause, into the unique origin of evil for our own disgrace and for all of this afflicted world. Thundering Zeus, the one who gathers the clouds, clearly represents the host of the primary progenitors, the Pitris, the fathers who created man into his own image and likeness. The few sages who have existed in the world do not ignore that Lucifer Prometheus, Mahajura, the giver of light and fire, horribly enchained to the Mount Caucasus and condemned to the pain of living, also represents the rebel Devis who fell into animal generation in the dawning of life. It is not irrelevant to cite in this book some of those titans who fell at the beginning of the dawn. First, let us remember Moloch, a luminous angel of yore, a horrid king besmeared with the blood of human sacrifices, with the tears of parents and the desperation of mothers. Though for the loud noise of drums and timbrels unheard went the cries of their children, who passed through fire to be pitilessly immolated to this execrable monster, beautiful god from other times. The Ammonites worshipped him in Rabbah and its watery plain, in Argob and in Bazan, to the stream of utmost Arnon. The legend of the centuries state that Solomon, son of David, king of Zion, built a temple to Moloch right on that opprobrious hill. The seven lords of time state that subsequently, this wise old king dedicated a sacred grove in the pleasant valley of Hinnom to such a fallen angel. Such a fecund perfumed land, for such a fatal motive, then changed its name for Tophet and Black Gehenna, a true type of hell. Next following Moloch, a man-angel from archaic volcanic Lemuria, where the rivers of pure waters of life were pouring forth milk and honey, comes Baal-peor, the obscene dread of Moab's sons, who dwelled from Aroer to Nebo, and even far beyond the south most of the desert of Abiram. He dwelled also in Hesbon and Horonaim, in Zion's realm, beyond the flowery dales of Sibmah clad with vines, and Aleel to the asphaltic lake. Frightful, left-handed, tenebrous Baal-peor, he enticed the Israelites in Sittim on their march from the Nile to perform for him wanton rites, which cost them woes. From there this Elohim, fallen amidst the Luciferic reddish fires. His lascivious orgies he enlarged even to that hill of scandal, by the grove of the homicidal Moloch. Thenceforth, it is obvious that their abominable debauchery was established hard by hate, till pious Josiah drove them thence to hell. With these terribly malignant divinities, who in the ancient continent Mu were indeed exemplar men, humanized angels, came those who from the bordering flood of old Euphrates to the brook that parts Egypt from Syrian ground, had the undesirable names of Baal and Ashtaroth. Thereafter, continuing in a successive order, came Belial from the Empyrean. Indeed, there is not a spirit who fell more impurely lewd, or more grossly inclined to love vice than this creature, who in ancient Lemurian times was certainly a master or angelic guru of ineffable splendors. This demon, a deity in other times, had no temples stood, nor were any consecrations offered to him at any altar. Nonetheless, no one is more often than he in temples and at altars. When the priests turn atheist, as did Eli's sons, who disgracefully filled with prostitution and violence the house of the Lord, they are then, as a fact, converted into slaves of Belial. Sublime Hierophant from archaic epochs of our world, delectable angel, now an evil Luciferic demon, he also reigns in luxurious courts and palaces and in dissolute cities, where the noise of riot, lust, and outrage ascends above their loftiest towers. Thus, when night darkens the streets, then wander forth the children of Belial, flown with insolence and wine. Witnesses of all these are the streets of Sodom and that horrible night in Gibeah, when its doors yielded a matron to prevent a worse loathed rape. Inspire me, O ineffable Muses! O gods, talk to me now, so that my style does not retract from the nature of this matter. What would we say now about Azazel, a glorious cherub, extraordinary man of the ancient earth? Woe! 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 How painful it is! This so excellent creature also fell into animal generation. How terrible is the thirst of sexual lust! The fallen one unfurled the glittering staff, the imperial ensign, which full high advance shone like a meteor streaming to the wind with pearls and rich golden luster that depicts seraphic arms and trophies. Mammon comes after, the least erected among the men angels from ancient Arcadia, also fallen into bestial generation. He was the first one who taught the inhabitants of the earth to ransack the center of the world. Thus, they did it, rifling the bowels of their mother earth for treasures better hid forever. The covetous band of Mammon soon opened into the mountain a spacious wound and extracted from its womb ribs of gold. Now, what will we say in regard to Mulciber? Indeed, his name was not unheard, nor did he ever lack fanatical adorers in ancient Greece. This is known by the divine and human. The classical fable refers how Mulciber fell from Olympus, thrown by angry Jupiter over the crystalline, divine battlements. Nothing ought availed him then to have built in heaven high towers. A man with genius from the Purpur race in the continent Mu, fallen into the abysses of sexual passion. Finally, in order to conclude with this small list of deities, fulminated by the thunderbolt of cosmic justice, it is necessary to state that in no way are missing in the pandemonium, the high capital of Satan and his peers, Andromlech, about whom we have already talked abundantly in our former Gnostic books, and Asmodeus, his brother. 2 resplendent thrones from the starry heaven of Urania, also fallen into animal generation. Exemplar men, gods with human bodies in the land of Mu, abjectly wallowing in the bed of Procusto. The Luciferic Christic host who incarnated in the archaic Lemuria, induced by that nemesis or superior karma that controls the ineffable ones and that is known as the law of Catantia, committed the mistake of falling into animal generation. Fatal was for the human species the sexual downfall of the divine titans who did not know how to use the mighty boon of Prometheus, thus rolling into the abyss. Our saviors, the Agnishvata, the superior titans of the Luciferic fire, can never be cheated. They, the brilliant children of the dawn, know very well how to distinguish between what is a downfall is and what is a descent. Some sincerely mistaken ones now compel themselves to justify the angelic downfall. Metaphorically, Lucifer is the conductor torch which helps the human being to find his route through the cliffs and the sandbanks of life. Lucifer is the Logos in its more elevated aspect and the adversary in its inferior aspect, both reflecting themselves in and within each one of us. Lactatio, when speaking about the nature of Christ, makes of the Logos, the Verb, the first begotten brother of Satan and the first of all creatures. Amidst the great tempest of the Luciferic fire, squadrons of angels and demons, prototypes and antitypes, mutually combat each other. If the good Sir Amfortas, King of the Grail, would have known how to properly use the Luciferic mighty boon in the supreme moment of sexual temptation, then, it is ostensible that he would have passed through a radical transformation. Chapter 19. The Precious Balm. Kundry Herodias, as the Hebraic Magdalene of other times, brings a delectable phial from the exotic Arabia. Amfortas, the illustrious knight of the Holy Grail, asks urgently for a precious balm in order to heal his wounded heart. This is an astounding passage from the Wagnerian drama, which should be gloriously sculpted over august marbles and with letters of gold. Crystalline concomitance, in this case, is that event in which the great Kabir Jesus is anointed by the beauty from the palace of Magdala. The adorable one said, "She hath wrought a good work on me. For ye have the poor with you always, and whensoever ye will ye may do them good. But me ye have not always. She hath done what she could, she is come aforehand to anoint my body to the burying." Mark 14, 6-8. She is a female of irresistible enchantments, breaking the alabaster phial of ointment to pour on the head of the dearest rabbi of Galilee. It is written with words of mystery that only the woman symbol, the original she-devil, prototype of that which is the most sublime and on par with that which is the most abject on the earth, is the unique one who indeed has the power of anointing us to the death. Comprehension and elimination are radical if indeed what we want is to die within ourselves. To discard the multiple psychological aggregates, defects, which in their horrifying conjunction constitute the animal ego, is certainly not an easy task. You know it is better to drink the feminine liquor, which is the mandrake liquor. If you drink of it, you will never err upon the path. Sexual eroticism is indispensable. To love is indeed the most pure and delectable yearning. A defect discovered in an integral way must be suppressed, removed, separated under the enchantments of Eros. Do not forget your divine mother Kundalini, Isis, Re, Cybele, Tenansin, Mary, Adonia, Nsoberta. Sex is a holy phial, put in it just a pure thought. Behind every kiss, there must be a prayer, behind every hug a rite of mystery. While in sacred copulation, ask and it shall be granted unto you, knock and it shall be opened unto you. She, the one whose veil no mortal has lifted, will then eliminate what is undesirable, what is abominable. Thus, you will die from moment to moment. This. Hold your cup very well aloft while in the feast of love and be careful of not even spilling a drop of the precious wine. Do not spill Hermes' cup, inebriate yourself with kisses and tenderness under the shade of the tree of knowledge, but do not swallow the golden apples from the garden of Hesperides. Chapter 20. Absurd justification. Extraordinary delirium of supreme bitterness is the one in which Lucifer Prometheus exclaims, "O divine ether! Breezes on swift bird wings! Behold what I, a god, from gods endure. And yet, what am I saying, exactly I foresee. All that shall come to pass, what is determined now. To suffer the fatal destiny that fate has given me. For I know well the law of Hades is unconquerable. With a lot of pain, O gods, I have read in a certain book whose title I do not want to mention a paragraph that literally states, for the host who incarnated in a portion of humanity, though led to it by karma or nemesis, preferred free will to passive slavery, intellectual self-conscious pain and even torture, while myriad time shall flow to inane, imbecile, instinctual beatitude. The cited author continues emphatically stating, knowing such an incarnation was premature and not in the program of nature, the heavenly host Prometheus still sacrificed itself to benefit thereby, at least, one portion of mankind. Obviously, this brings us the myth of excellence from all the ancient theogonies, which is the myth of celestial rebellion or of the fallen angels, those titans who dare to fight even against the holy gods. Ineffable, terribly divine ones, converted into men, reincarnated deities within human bodies. Vain thing is to mistake a downfall with a descent. These deities did not descend, they fell, and this is different. Therefore, and rightly so, this is why the theogonies depict to us these divine logoi as punished. The universal myth considers them as failed ones, punished and fallen when they are obligated to live with their tenebrous legions in that inferior region, Inferno, which is the name given to the Earth's interior planetary organism. Read chapter 18 of the present book. It is written and with dreadful characters in the book of the law that a third of the host of those named Dhyanis or Arupas was simply condemned by the law of karma or nemesis to incessantly be reborn in our afflicted world. Billions of auras, breaths or horrifying gusts devolve now in the infernal worlds amidst the weeping, the darkness and the gnashing of teeth. These are unhappy creatures from the Averno, falling into worlds whose density is always increasing, returning towards the primeval chaos. Such lost souls impatiently yearn for the second death in order to escape from the underground world. They are precious essences bottled up within all of those abysmal egos, divine flames suffering. These Buddhatas of fallen angels yearn to re-enter into the elemental paradises of nature. These auras, breaths recommence thereafter the evolving march that will conduce them again from the stone until the human being. The divine ones and humans know very well that the human species gained nothing with the downfall of those titans of the fire. What happened then with Moloch? What occurred then with Andromlech and his brother Asmodeus? What then with Belial? What then with Baal-peor? What then with Yahweh? Luminaries from ancient times, yet, now horrifying demons. But, the gold of the mind, what about that? The rational humanoids have never been endowed with manas, mental body. To Soma Heliacon, the golden body of the solar man, the supersensible vehicles of the soul, must be created in the flaming forge of Vulcan, you know this. Within the symbolic apple of the paradise of Hesperides or Pippola, the forbidden sweet fruit of sex, is found the clue of all powers. Instead of the paradisiacal vehicles that the intellectual animal believes to be in possession of, only the ego, the myself, Mephistopheles, is what exists within each rational creature. Chapter 21. The Papa Purusha. In the name of the 100 virgins from the ineffable mystery that is hidden in the depth of all ages, it is now important to talk a little about the famous Hindustani Papa Purusha, the eye. The old hermits from the sacred land of Ganges have the custom of mentally visualizing it in the left side of the cavity of the stomach, and it is having the size of the thumb. They imagine it with a wild aspect, red-colored eyes and beard, holding sword and shield with its shirring forehead. This symbolical figure represents any of our psychological defects. Mystical, unforgettable moment of exotic oriental beatitude is the one in which the anchorite elders chant their sacred mantras and concentrate themselves ecstatically in the region of their navel. In those delectable moments of unsuspected joy, the yogi must think in the Papa Purusha, imagining it being reduced into ashes within the crackling fire. Tears of profound repentance for the deeds committed in ancient times fall from the eyes of the penitent one, who in holy silence beseeches his divine mother Kundalini to eliminate from his interior this or that psychological defect. This is, indeed, how the sadhaka is dying from moment to moment. What is new arrives only with death. The Papa Purusha is the lunar ego, Goethe's Mephistopheles, the dreadful Klingsor from the Wagnerian drama. The terrible fact is by all means evident that the Papa Purusha does not have a legitimate individuality. It is not a unique center of command, it is not a particular ray. Each idea, any sentiment, this or that sensation, I love, I do not love, is without a doubt a different, distinct I. These multiple I's are neither joined amongst themselves, nor are they coordinated in any way. Each one of them certainly depends upon the diverse exterior changes. Any given I fatally follows another, and some of them even give to themselves the luxury of appearing accompanied by others. Nonetheless, it is obvious that there is neither an order nor a system in this. Some capricious groups of quarrelsome and shouting eyes have amongst themselves certain psychic ties, constituted by natural associations of a completely accidental type, fortuitous remembrances or special similarities. It is ostensible that each one of these fractions of the Papa Purusha, each one of these psychic aggregates or L's represent, in any given moment, only a most inferior part of all our psychological functions. Nevertheless, it is unquestionable that any particular type of I believes very sincerely that it is representing the whole. When the wretched intellectual animal mistakenly called human says he has the false impression that he is talking of himself in his total, integral aspect. But indeed, it is any one of the innumerable subjective fractions of his Papa Purusha that is speaking. Moments later, he can totally forget it and express with identical conviction any other antithetical idea, a simple manifestation of another I. The multiple contradictions of a psychological type have as a foundation the pluralized I, which are the various phases of the Papa Purusha. The grave aspect of all of these psychological processes is that the wretched rational humanoid certainly does not remember anything about these things. In the majority of cases, he gives his reputation to the last I that has spoken. This will be for as long as such an I endures, that is to say, until a new I, which sometimes without any relation with the anterior one, expresses another strong opinion. It is certain that the consciousness, bottled up inside all of those subjective fractions of the Papa Purusha, sleeps profoundly. It is subconsciousness. We need to convert the subconsciousness into consciousness, and this is only possible by annihilating the Papa Purusha. So, in order to conclude with this chapter, it is important to analyze some very interesting words in Sanskrit. Let us see. Amkrita Bhava. The meaning of these two Hindustani terms is egoic condition of our own consciousness. It is obvious that the consciousness inserted into all of those psychological aggregates that constitute the Papa Purusha fatally processes itself in accordance to its own bottled condition. Atmavidya. This is a mysterious word, a Sanskrit term filled with a deep significance. This must be translated as awakened consciousness freed from the Papa Purusha, by means of the total annihilation of the latter one. It is notorious that the consciousness, bottled up inside all of those subjective elements of the Papa Purusha, does not enjoy authentic illumination. It is found in the state of millenary somnolence. It sleeps, it is always a victim of Maya, illusions. Atmashakti, this is a divine Sanskrit term. We indicate absolute spiritual power with this golden word. As a result, consequence or corollary, we can and even must emphasize the classic idea that the consciousness cannot enjoy legitimate spiritual power while it is not yet integrally liberated from its egoic condition. The Wagnerian Parsifal, protected with the weapons of Vulcan, reduced into cosmic dust the monster of 1,000 phases, the famous Papa Purusha. Thus, only in this way did he reconquer the innocence in his mind and heart. If indeed it is true that in a remote past the son of Herzalide had mortally wounded the Kalahamsa swan, it is ostensible, and anybody can comprehend this, that when he entered into the lands of Monsalvat, lust no longer existed inside of him. He was pure, he had converted himself into a saint, he had attained the Atmadi Daya. Chapter 22. Awake. Oh, wretched intellectual humanoids! Wake up from your dreadful dream of Ajnana, ignorance. Open your eyes and attain the complete and absolute knowledge of Atman, the being. Crown yourselves with the blessed laurel of poetry. It is important that we pour from the golden amphora of wisdom the sweet wine. In the name of Lodheev, the Father who is in secret, and the Divine Mother Kundalini, you and I, beloved reader, must talk. Ah! If you could comprehend what it is to be awakened. Listen to me, I tell you, about the Dhammapada, the sacred work of Buddha Siddhartha Gautama. For the awakened one, forbearing patience is the highest austerity. Nirvana is supreme, says the Buddha. He, verily, is not an anchorite who harms another. Nor is he an ascetic who oppresses others. The awakened ones who are intent on meditation, who delight in the peace of renunciation, such mindful perfect Buddhas even the gods hold most dear. To cease from all evil, to cultivate good, to purify one's mind, this is the advice of all those who are awakened. Whoever honors those worthy of honor, those who have awakened, or honors their disciples who have overcome the malignant guest, the animal ego, and who have traversed through the floods of suffering, he who honors those worthy of honor, those who have reached liberation and who do not know fear, he has overcome suffering, he has gained great merit. Ah, happily do we live without hate amongst the hateful, amidst hateful men we dwell unhating. Ah, happily do we live if we restrain ourselves of afflicting those who afflict us, if amongst those who afflict us, we dwell in good health, free from the disease of revenge. Ah, happily do we live without yearning for sensual pleasures, amongst those who yearn for them, amidst those who yearn for them, we dwell without yearning. Ah, happily do we live, we who have no impediments. Feeders of joy shall we be, even as the gods of the radiant realm who nourish themselves with happiness. For misfortunes befall the reckless person who consorts with another's spouse. Acquisition of demerit, disturbed bed, filthy as well, punishment and states of woe, hell. Those sages who are harmless, and are ever restrained in body, go to the deathless state, nirvana, whither gone they never grieve. Those who are ever vigilant, who discipline themselves day and night, who are wholly intent on nirvana, will succeed by destroying their own passions. This matter about destroying, discarding, or eliminating psychological defects is radical in order to awaken consciousness. Multiple aggregates of a subjective type, let us call them I, particularize and give their characteristic feature to our passions. Comprehension and elimination are indispensable in order to discard all of that variety of subjective elements which constitute the ego, the myself, itself. Comprehension is not everything. Somebody can comprehend in an integral way what the three classical forms of anger are: corporeal anger, emotional moody anger, and anger of the tongue. Nonetheless, this person can continue having all of them. We can even give to ourselves the luxury of controlling the body, the emotional mood, and the mind, yet it is ostensible that this does not signify elimination. When one wants to extirpate passions, then one has to call upon a superior power. I want to refer to the solar, sexual, serpentine power which is developed in the body of the ascetic. The mysterious word that defines such a power is Kundalini, the fiery serpent of our magical powers, the Divine Mother. It is unquestionable that this creative energy particularizes itself in every creature. As a sequence and corollary, we can and must even emphasize the transcendental idea of a particular cosmic mother in every human being. Kundry, Herodias, Gundrigia, the woman of Antonomasia, sleeping in the land of Monsalvat, must awake from her millenarian dream. Chapter 23. The Serpentine Force. When we speak with the very pure rising of the divine language, which is a river of gold runs under the dense jungle of the sun, then it is impossible for us to forget the magic S that resounds within the umbra as a sweet and affable whistle. That is the subtle voice, the one which Elias listened to in the wilderness. Apollonius of Tyana enwrapped himself with his famous wool mantle in order to beg to the holy gods, asking them for the enigmatic sound. The mystical note, the magic S, conferred to the old Hierophant the power of consciously projecting himself with his astral body. Indeed, the S has a certain similitude with the Hebraic letter Tsad, while the triform Greek sigma is related with the S and with Shin and Samak. The latter one means sustain and has the numerological value of 60. It has been stated to us, which is known by any Kabbalist, that Shin has the value of 300, signifies tooth. The addition of these two letters is therefore equivalent to the 360 degrees of the circle and to the sidereal days of the solar year. However, we, the Gnostics, must go much further beyond. We must inquire, scrutinize, search, discover the intimate existing relationship between the serpent and the cross. The S, serpent, and the T, cross, are the esoteric symbols that profoundly complement each other. The S is simultaneously a Jehovistic and Vedantine truth. It is the serpentine power or mystic fire, the primordial energy or Shakti potential, which lies dormant within the magnetic center of the coccygeal bone. The Sanskrit name of such a magnetic center is Muladhara. This is the Church of Ephesus. The Kundalini is the pristine force of the universe, the electric, occult power which underlies all organic and inorganic matter. The sexual connection of the phallus with the uterus forms a cross. The Kundalini, the magic S, the snake, is found intimately related with that cross or Tau. The serpentine fire awakes with the power of the Holy Cross. This is ostensible. Tau has precisely the marvelous significance of cross in Hebrew. It ends as the 22nd letter of that alphabet and with the numeric value of 400. It is easy to comprehend that the value is a modern letter derived from the V, as the G is from the C, because of the urgent necessity of clearly distinguishing between the two sounds and naturally acquiring a Greek-identical practical form. Observe very attentively that marvelous curve which descends and ascends. The humiliation or descent into the infernal worlds, into the ninth sphere, sex, is a necessary preliminary for the exaltation or sublimation. Whosoever wants to ascend must first of all descend, this is the law. Every exaltation is always preceded by a humiliation. The descent into the ninth sphere, sex, was, since ancient times, the greatest ordeal for the supreme dignity of the Hierophant. Hermes, Buddha, Jesus, Dante, Zoroaster, etc., had to pass through that difficult ordeal. Mars descends there in order to retemper his sword and conquer the heart of Venus. Hercules descends in order to clean the stables of Augeas, and Perseus descends in order to cut off the head of Medusa with his flaming sword. The perfect circle with the magic, sidereal and hermetic symbol of the king star, sun, and of the substantial principle of life, light, and of the cosmic consciousness is, without any doubt, a marvelous phallic emblem. Such a symbol clearly expresses the masculine and feminine principles of the ninth sphere. It is unquestionable that the active principle of irradiation and penetration complement each other in the ninth circle with the passive principle of reception and absorption. The biblical serpent presents us the image of the creator logos or sexual force which starts its manifestation from the potential latent state. The serpentine fire, the sacred viper sleeps coiled 3.5 times within the coccygeal church. If we reflect very seriously in the intimate existing relationship between the S and the tau, cross or CT, we then arrive at the logical conclusion that only by means of the Sahaja Maithuna, sexual magic, can the creative snake be awakened. I have published the clue, the secret, in almost all of my former books. This consists of not ever spilling the cup of Hermes during the sexual trance. The clue is the connection of the lingam yoni, phallus uterus, without ever ejaculating the ens seminis, the entity of semen, because within that aforementioned substance is found latent the whole ens virtutis of the fire. E-A-O is the fundamental mantra of the Sahaja Maithuna. Chant each letter separately while in the laboratorium oratorium of the third logos, during the sacred copulation. The sexual transmutation of the ens seminis into creative energy is a legitimate axiom of Hermetic wisdom. The bipolarization of this type of cosmic energy in the human organism was analyzed ever since ancient times in the initiatic colleges of Egypt, Mexico, Greece, India, etc. The ascension of the seminal energy to the brain is performed thanks to a certain pair of nervous cords that in the form of an 8 splendidly unfold to the right and to the left of the dorsal spine. We now have arrived at the caduceus of Mercury with its wings of the spirit that are always opened. These pair of mentioned nervous cords can never be found with the scalpel, because they are rather of an ethereal, tetradimensional nature. These are the two witnesses of the apocalypse, the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth, and if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. In the sacred land of the Vedas, these pair of nervous cords are known with the Sanskrit names of Ida and Pingla. The first one is related with the left nasal cavity and the second one with the right. It is obvious that the first one of these two famous nadis is of a lunar type. It is ostensible that the second one is of a solar type. Many Gnostic students may be a little surprised to find that the roots of Ida are in the right testicle, when Ida is of a cold and lunar nature. Many disciples of our Gnostic movement might receive the news as unexpected and unusual that Pingla really emerges from the left testicle, when Pingla is of a strictly solar nature. Nevertheless, we must not be surprised, because everything in nature is based on the law of polarities. The right testicle finds its exact antipole in the left nasal cavity. The left testicle finds its perfect antipode in the right nasal cavity. Esoteric physiology teaches us that in the feminine sex, the two witnesses emerge from the ovaries. It is unquestionable that within women, the order of these two olive trees of the temple are harmoniously reversed. Old traditions which surge forth from within the profound night of all ages state that when the solar and lunar atoms of the seminal system make contact in the triveni, close to the coccyx, then as a simple electrical induction, a third magic force awakens. I want to refer to the Kundalini, the mystic fire of the Gnostic Arhat. It is written in old texts of ancient wisdom that the inferior orifice of the medullary canal is found hermetically closed in common and current people. The seminal vapors open this canal in order for the sacred snake to penetrate through it. Along the medullary canal, a marvelous play of various canals are processed. Let us remember the Sushumna, the Vedra, the Chitra, the Centralis, and Brahmanadi. The Kundalini rises through the latter one. It is a frightful lie to affirm that after the incarnation of the being, the Jivatma, within the heart of the human being, the sacred serpent undertakes a return trip towards the coccyx, until remaining enclosed again inside the Muladhara chakra. It is a horrifying falsity to affirm that the fiery serpent of our magical powers separates itself, venturing on a return trip through the initial path, after having its enjoyable union with Paramashiva. Such a fatal return, the descent towards the coccyx, is only possible when the initiate spills the semen. Then the initiate falls, fulminated by the thunderbolt of cosmic justice. The ascension of the Kundalini along the spinal column is performed very slowly, in accordance with the merits of the heart. The fires of the Kardiyas wisely control the miraculous ascension of the sacred serpent. Devi Kundalini is not something mechanical, as many suppose. The sacred serpent awakens with the true love between man and woman and will never ascend through the dorsal spine of the adulterers and perverse ones. It is good to know that when Hadith, the winged serpent of light, awakes in order to initiate her march along the spinal medullary canal, it emits a mysterious sound very similar to any viper which is incited with a stick. This comes to remind us of the magical S. Developed, revolves, and ascends within the marvelous aura of the Mahachon. It is not irrelevant to comprehend that when this serpentine fire arrives at the height of the heart, then the igneous wings of the caduceus of Mercury are opened. Thus, we can then instantaneously penetrate into any of the departments of the kingdom. The ascent of this sacred fire throughout the spinal column, from vertebra to vertebra, from degree to degree, is frightfully slow. It is ostensible that the 33 degrees of occult masonry, which belonged to one such as Ragan, or as Leadbeater, correspond with the total sum of these 33 spinal vertebrae. When the alchemist commits the crime of spilling the cup of Hermes, I am referring to the ejaculation of the ens seminis, he obviously loses esoteric degrees, because the Kundalini goes down, descends one or more vertebrae in accordance with the magnitude of the fault. Amfortas, the venerable lord of the Holy Grail, while amidst the immodest arms of Kundry, Gundrigia, Herodias, the temptress Eve from the Hebraic mythology, spilled the mercury of the secret philosophy. Therefore, he fell fulminated by the 16th arcanum of the Kabbalah. The downfall of the rebel angels did not benefit anyone, yet, instead, it disgracefully ruined the whole world. If the angels would not have spilled the sacred wine, then their nemesis would have been very different. Thus, the lyre of Orpheus would not have ever fallen to the floor of the temple, smashing into pieces. To descend into the ninth sphere is not prohibited, and it is even indispensable for every exaltation, yet, to fall is different. Therefore, Amfortas fell, you know this. When the Kundalini reaches the Sahasrara, the lotus of 1,000 petals, situated in the superior part of the brain, she then betroths herself with the Lord Shiva, the third Logos, the Holy Spirit. It is written with letters of gold in the book of the occult mystery that the famous Tattva Shiva Shakti governs the Sahasrara, the church of Laodicea. We are always assisted by the Elohim in the magisterium of fire. They advise and help us. The Adhyatmika University of the Wise periodically examine the aspirants. The clue of human salvation is found in the medulla and in the semen, and anything that is not through this way signifies a useless waste of time. Kundalini is the goddess of the world adored by the wise. Only she can grant us illumination. As soon as the Kundalini awakens in order to initiate its subliminal inward and upward ascent, the alchemist then achieves the following 6 transcendental mystical experiences. Ananda, a type of spiritual enjoyment. Kampan, electric and psychic type of hypersensibility. Uthin, progressive increase of the objective consciousness. Gurney, intense mystical longings. Murcha, states of lassitude, spontaneous relaxation during the esoteric exercises. Nidra, a specific mode of dream that when combined with meditation becomes transformed into samadhi, ecstasy. To give testimony of the truth will never be a crime. In my condition of Kulki avatar or Soziosh of the new Aquarian era, I emphatically declare the following. It is not possible to awaken the Kundalini with all of those multiple pseudo-esoteric procedures in vogue and taught in diverse schools. The bellow system, with all its variety of pranayamas, the diverse asanas and forms of hatha yoga, the midras, bhaktas, bandhas, etc., will never place in activity the serpentine fire. The igneous particles that escape from the sacred flame during certain yogic practices do not signify the awakening of the Kundalini. Unfortunately, many sincerely mistaken ones, filled with magnificent intentions, confuse the sparks with flame. The serpentine fire can only be awakened and developed exclusively with sexual magic, Sahaja Methuna. The advent of the fire is the most extraordinary cosmic event. This igneous element comes to transform us radically. A certain transcendental memory comes into my mind in the moments in which I write these ardent lines. On one occasion during an incorporeal travel, in a state of ecstasy or samadhi, I dared to question my Divine Mother Kundalini in the following way. Q. Is it possible that in the physical world there could be someone that could self-realize himself without the necessity of sexual magic? The answer to this last question was tremendous. A. Impossible, my son, that is not possible. She said this with so much vehemence that I frankly confess I felt myself bewildered. The serpentine fire is the mystic duad, the unfolding of the unity of the monad, the eternal feminine aspect of Brahma, Mother God. The igneous snake grants us infinite powers, among them being the mukti of final beatitude and the jnana of liberation. Chapter 24. The miracle of transubstantiation. Let's us return to the Horatian lyrics and sing a little. To an amphory of wine. O not the mecum consul manlio. Seu tu corellas siue juris iocos. Seu rixum et insanos amores. Seu facilum, pia testa, somnum. Born with me under the consul Mancio. Soon thou inspirest quarrels, soon games and jokes. Soon brawls among friends or crazy loves. Soon tranquil dreams, pitiful amphory. Quocunc lectum nomini massacum. Seruas, mueri digna bono die, descend. Corvino ubent promir languidira vina. The pure massacum worthy of a great day. That thou hast loyally kept, what for? It does not matter, offer it and descend, Corvino calls upon thee. Thou languid flux, stingy, do not blench. Non isle, quamquam Socraticis medet. Sermonibus, te negligit horridus. Narrator et Prisicatones. Seat mero caluus virtus. It will not make of thee hideous. No matter how much deeply. Within Socratic books affably it is absorbed. That even the elder Caton used, they say, to warm with wine his virtuous frown. Tu lena tormentum ingenio id mus. Plerumpturo, tu sapientium. Curas et arcanum iocaso. Concilium redigis lyceo. Stallion of affable torment, thou makest to utter. Whosoever that, with tardy genius, words cannot acquire. Thou loosest the tongue of the wise who conceals his secret plans and his deep sorrows. Tu spem reducis mentibus anxious. Viresci te addis cornua pauperi. Post te nec eratos tormenti. Regum apices nec militum arma. Thou grantest hope unto the heart that doubts. Thou addest vigor unto the wretched one. And he, after some cups, firmly the diadems of enraged kings, and of their followers, their weapons confront. Te liber et esse leda aderit Venus. Signesc notum salura Gratii. Vivec percussit Lucerni. Dum radians fugit astra Phoebus. If Bacchus, if Venus smiling assist. If the Graces who gambling together abet. Thou then will endure upon the glimmering of loyal lamps, until the stars are off by the dawn. We find a precious narrative in the Gnostic Mass which textually states the following. Then Jesus, the divine great Gnostic priest, chanted a delightful song of praise in the great name, and Jesus said unto his disciples, Draw near unto me. And they drew near unto him. Then he turned himself towards the four corners of the world. He extended his quiet look and uttered the profoundly sacred name You. He blessed them and breathed into their eyes. And Jesus exclaimed unto them, Look above. Now ye are clairvoyant. Then they raised their eyes to where Jesus was pointing and saw a great, exceedingly mighty light which no human being in the world can describe. The great priest Jesus said unto them anew, Look away out of that mighty light and look towards the other side. Then they saw a mighty fire, water, wine, and blood. Here occurs the blessing of bread and wine. And Jesus proceeded and said unto his disciples, Amen, I say unto you, I have brought nothing into the world when I came, save the fire, the water, the wine, and the blood of redemption. I have brought the fire and the water out of the region of the light of lights, from there where the treasury of the light is found. And I have brought the wine and the blood out of the region of Barbello. And after a little while, the Father sent me the Holy Spirit in the form of a white dove. But hear me, the fire, the water, and the wine are for the purification and forgiveness of sins. The Gospel of Tassiano gives testimony of the sacrament of the body and of the blood when saying, And Jesus took bread and blessed it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, Take and eat. For this is my body which is given for you. And he took the chalice, and gave thanks, and offered it to his disciples, and said, Take and drink ye all of it. For this is my blood which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Do this in remembrance of me. Luke unveils intelligently the deep significance of this mystical, magical ceremony, saying, Then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Paschal lamb must be sacrificed. And Jesus sent Peter, whose gospel is sex, and John, whose gospel is the word, saying, Go and prepare us the Passover, that we may eat. Luke 22, 7-8. The secret name of Peter is Pater with its three consonants, which in high esotericism are radical. P reminds us of the Father who is in secret, the Ancient of Days of Hebraic Kabbalah. T or Tau, crossed letter, already studied in our former chapter, is famous in sex yoga. Ra is the sacred fire, divinity, logos. John disarranges itself in the five vowels, I, E, O, U, A, swan, chon, yoan, the verb, the word. Peter dies, crucified on the inverted cross, with his head towards the ground and his feet towards the heavens, as if he is inviting us to descend into the forge of the Cyclops, into the ninth sphere, in order to work with the fire and water, origin of worlds, beasts, humans, and gods. Every authentic white initiation begins here. John, the ineffable one, reposes his head over the chest of the great Kabir Jesus, as if he is stating, Love nourishes itself with love. By all means, it is very easy to comprehend that the creative word awaits in mystical lurking, huddled in the depth of the arch, for the precise moment to be realized. Whosoever knows, the word gives power to. No one has uttered it, no one will utter it, except the one who has the verb incarnated. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It is written with fiery words in the great book of the cosmic existence that first we must walk with complete firmness upon the path of Peter. The verb that reposes hidden within the profound and mysterious depth of all ages clearly teaches that it is necessary to subsequently traverse along the path of John. However, it is unquestionable that between these two terribly divine paths there exists an intermediate abyss. It is urgent, it is indispensable to build a breach of marvels and prodigies between these two paths. Then subsequently, to die from moment to moment. To transmute in order to utter with the very pure rising of the divine language is certainly the deep mystical significance of the Gnostic unction. The bread and the wine, the seed of wheat and the fruit of the grapevine must be royally transformed into the flesh and blood of the intimate Christ. The solar logos, with its impelling and active life, makes the seed of wheat to germinate in order for the stalks to grow from millimeter to millimeter. Then, the solar logos, as if confined inside of a precious coffer, becomes enclosed within the dark hardness of this grain. The solar rays, solemnly penetrating into the stump of the grapevine, are developed and unfolded in concealment, until ripened in the sacrosanct fruit. The Gnostic priest, when in the state of ecstasy, perceives this cosmic substance of the Sun Christ, which is enclosed within the bread and wine. Thus, he unbinds this substance from its physical elements in order for the Christic atoms to victoriously penetrate within the human organism. The solar Christic atoms, these igneous existences, these secret agents of the adorable One, work silently within the heart temple, in order to invite us over and over again to tread the path that must conduce us into nirvana. The mysterious help of the Christic atoms by all means stand out. Thus, the light shines within the darkness, and the 12 loaves of hallowed bread of the proposition appear upon the altar. This manifestation alludes to the 12 zodiacal signs or distinct modalities of cosmic substance. This reminds us of the 12th card of the tarot, which is the apostolate. The magnus opus, the union of the cross with the triangle. Regarding the wine, which is derived from the ripe fruit of the grapevine, it is the symbol of the fire, of the blood and of the life, which manifests itself in this substance. It is unquestionable that even when the words vino, vita, vine, wine, life, grapevine, have distinct origins, nonetheless, it cannot be denied that they have certain symbolic affinities. Therefore, we cannot correlate vino, wine, with vis, strength, and with virtus, moral strength, as well as with Virgo, virgin, the igneous serpent of our magical powers, in any other way. The Sahaja Methuna, sexual magic, between male and female, Adam-Eve, on the delicious bed of authentic love, truly keeps sublime rhythmic concordances with the mystical agape of the great Kabir Jesus. The enchanted germ of the sacred stalk has its intimate exponent in the human seed. The sacrosanct fruit of the vine is, indeed, the natural emblem of life that manifests itself with all of its splendor in the substance. Transforming the bread, seed, into solar flesh, and the exquisite wine into the Christic blood and holy fire is the most extraordinary miracle of sex yoga. The golden body of the solar man, the famous Tisoma Heliacon, complete synthesis of the Christic vehicles, is the flesh, blood, and life of the creator logos or demiurge. The living secret crystallization of sexual energy into the resplendent form of that glorious body is only possible with amorous magic. Einstein, one of the great luminaries of the intellect, wrote a wise statement that says literally, "Matter transforms into energy. Energy transforms into matter." It is ostensible that through the Sahaja Methuna, we can and we must transform the ens seminis into energy. It is unquestionable that our sexual modus operandi allow us to transform the creative energy into the glorious flesh of the man Christ's golden body. To transform the bread into flesh and the wine, life, into royal blood, into the living and philosophical fire is to perform the formidable miracle of transubstantiation. The Wagnerian Parsifal, after too much bitterness, is wisely guided by his guru Gurnmans until the sacred sanctuary of the Holy Grail, with the evident purpose of teaching him the mysteries of the transubstantiation. From the heights, from the heaven of Urania, descends, as if by enchantment, a very pure dazzling ray of light, that when falling upon the divine chalice, makes it to glow with a brilliant crimson color. Amphortas, with a transfigured countenance, raises the chalice, living symbol of the feminine yoni, aloft and waves it gently round to all sides, consecrating the bread and the wine for the tables, while the joyful choruses chant the Eucharistic hymn.